Hello, folks. Welcome to our next reading of Javi's favorite movie from Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, or second favorite movie, Paddington 2, which still makes a lot of people cry for all the best reasons because it's a masterpiece. We have a wonderful cast with us today, being our scene description and his favorite Doctor Who, that will be John. Reading as one of the many actors from the Harry Potter movies, Bad Eye Moody, but this time he's Knuckles, and as well as Dumbledore himself, Uncle Pastuzo, and also Mrs. Weasley, Mrs. Bird, George. As Henry Brown, as well as Professor Slughorn, Mr. Gruber, that will be Logan. As one of my favorite actresses ever, Sally Hawkins, who is also in one of my favorite movies, Shape of Water. That will be Angie by Mary. As without a doubt, my favorite Hugh Grant performance ever in this movie as Phoenix Buchanan, that will be Chelsea. As Aunt Lucy, Judy, but definitely Aunt Lucy as Professor Umbridge in the Harry Potter movies, that will be Karina. And finally, hi, I'm a bear called Paddington. All right, folks. And John, take us away.
Paddington 2, written by Simon Farnaby and Paul King, based on the Paddington Bear books by Michael Bond. Exterior, darkest Peru a few bare years ago. Somewhere in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, a homemade rope bridge stretches across a vast jungle valley. Rainwater cascades down the hillsides in waterfalls, and a huge river flows far beneath. But sitting on the bridge, perfectly serene, are two elderly bears, Lucy and Pastuzo. Lucy is pouring herself a cup of tea, while Pastuzo makes himself a marmalade sandwich. He puts it under his battered red bush hat for safekeeping, and sets about making a quadruple-decker sandwich to eat now.
Our last rainy season.
Just think, so this time next month we'll be in London.
Where the rivers run with marmalade and the streets are paved with bread.
Lucy gives him a quizzical look.
Did you read the book about London?
I skimmed it.
So,
Well, reading makes me sleepy, but any city that can come up with this is all right by me.
Pastuzo slaps the last slice of bread onto his sandwich and squishes it down, squirting marmalade over Lucy's glasses. She takes them off to wipe them, but as she does so, she spots something moving in the river beneath them.
oh, Susan, look.
Pastuzo picks up a pair of binoculars and peers through them to see a tiny bear cub clinging desperately to a branch, floating inexorably downstream towards a waterfall.
It's a cub.
Pastuzo lowers his binoculars to see Lucy climbing down one of the trailing vines that hang from the rope bridge.
Lucy!
Lower me down.
Pastuzo unties the vine and starts lowering Lucy towards the torrent that rages beneath them. Meanwhile, the cub is struggling to stay on his branch. He loses his footing and slips into the water, but just manages to retain his grip. Lucy is still a few meters above the water.
Lower, Susan, lower.
The cub looks up to see Lucy on the rope, stretching out a paw towards him. It's his last chance of salvation. He reaches up to grab hold, but slips from the branch. Without pausing to think, Lucy dives from the vine and onto the swirling waters. Pastuzo is yanked from his position on the bridge, his hat falling from his head. The branch, without its passenger, plunges over the waterfall and disappears into the swirling mists below. Back on the rope bridge, there is no sign of life. But then the camera moves and we discover Pastuzo has managed to cling to the underside of the bridge with one paw. He cautiously opens an eye and, to his great relief, sees Lucy swinging from a vine beneath him.
Lucy! Lucy!
I'm afraid we're not going to London after all, Pazuzu.
Why not?
Lucy is staring with love in her eyes at the drenched little bear cub she has managed to save from the waters. Pastuzo's hat has fallen onto his head.
We've got a cub to raise.
What's he like?
Rather small.
The cub sneezes, sending Pastuzo's hat over his face.
And rather sneezy.
Lucy tenderly lifts the hat to discover the cub is now eating Pastuzo's sandwich. He burps, surprising himself.
but he likes his marmalade.
Well, that's a good sign.
Oh, yes, Pazuzu. If we look after this bear, I have a feeling he'll go far.
As Pastuzo hauls them to safety, the camera cranes up to the vast Amazon sky. We mix through to a different sky, and the titles start as we crane down to find the towers, spires, and rooftops of the London skyline a few bare years later. Exterior Windsor Gardens day. In a beautiful street of pastel-colored homes, the same bear cub, a little older and scruffier, but still wearing the same battered red hat, sits in a round attic window. This is Paddington, gazing out at the city he loves.
Dear Aunt Lucy.
Interior Paddington's attic room, morning. Paddington sets about his day.
I hope all is well in the home for retired bears. Life in London has been better than ever this summer.
Interior the Browns' bathroom, morning. Paddington fires up the 2 electric toothbrushes.
I'm really getting to grips with how things work.
He puts the 2 toothbrushes in his ears. Next, he sticks them up his nose, and only then does he use them on his teeth.
And it seems there's something new to do every day.
Interior the Browns' kitchen, morning. Paddington sits at the table, surrounded by the happy chaos of a family breakfast. Judy, a defiantly intellectual 14-year-old, shows Paddington a leaflet for Kozlova's steam fair while he devours a pile of sandwiches.
Guess what, Paddington? The steam fair is coming to town. I'm going along tonight to write about it for my newspaper.
Jonathan, her 12-year-old brother, is immediately concerned at the impact this might have on his reputation. Who's going to want to read about that?
Everyone. They travel the world in an old steam train. I thought you'd love it.
I do, but don't tell anyone, okay? Not cool. Judy rolls her eyes at her conformist brother. Their adventurous mother, Mary, is full of the fun of the fair.
Why don't we all go? Your father's a dab hand at the coconuts, Shy.
Her husband, Henry, mimes throwing a ball and feels a twinge on his shoulder.
Not anymore. Coconuts are a young man's game.
Well, I think you're in great shape for a man your age, Mr. Brown.
Well, thank you, Paddington. Wait, hang on. How old do you think I am?
Oh, about 80?
80!
At least.
Paddington puts the last sandwich in his hat and gets up to leave, but Mrs. Bird, the Browns' aged Scottish relative and redoubtable housekeeper, stops him in his tracks.
Just a minute, wee bear. I thought I told you to clean your ears.
But I did, Mrs. Bird.
Mrs. Bird magics a coin from behind his ear.
I wonder how that got there.
Exterior Windsor Gardens, morning. Paddington runs out of the house as a bicycle comes around the corner towards him.
I've really fit at home in Windsor Gardens.
The French cyclist rings her bell.
Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Good morning, Paddington.
Paddington leaps on the back of the bike and hands the cyclist a sandwich as they freewheel down the street.
I bought you breakfast.
Thank you. Your sandwich always put me in a good mood.
They pass an absent-minded doctor emerging from his house.
Morning, Dr. Jafari. You haven't forgotten your keys again, have you?
Dr. Jafari stops, pats his pockets, and panics. Keys! Keys! Dr. Jafari rushes back to his closing front door, catching it just before he's locked out. Thank you, Paddington.
You're welcome.
Paddington and the cyclist ride on past the Colonel, a gloomy, disheveled man with a military mustache and a weak stubble wearing a dressing gown.
Glorious day, Colonel.
Is it? How absolutely thrilling.
They pass a newspaper kiosk. The owner is a cheery eccentric with a twinkle in her eye and a parrot on her shoulder.
How's your date, Miss Kids?
Well, he wasn't the one, but you know what they say. Exactly.
Mrs. Kitts throws a paper towards the bike. Paddington catches it and puts it in the cyclist basket. They sail round the corner and pull alongside a dustbin lorry. Paddington hops onto the back of the lorry as the cyclist heads off in another direction.
Morning, Mr. Barnes.
Morning.
Au revoir, mademoiselle.
Hi, Paddington.
The bin man hands him a much-thumbed A to Z map of London.
Come on then, test me.
What's the quickest way from Buckingham Palace to Big Ben?
Oh, an easy one. Straight down the mall, turn right.
Everyone's so kind and welcoming, even though they're very busy.
The dustbin lorry passes under a railway bridge as a colorful train crosses carrying Koslova steam fare. Exterior Serpentine Swimming Club, morning. Mary dives into the lake.
Mrs. Brown has decided to swim to France. It seems an awful lot of hard work, given you can go by boat, or plane, or even train.
Cutaway, various modes of travel.
But she spent the summer cooped up illustrating a series of adventure stories and has decided she wants one of her own.
Interior, Henry and Mary's bedroom, night. Mary, sitting at her desk, doodles a picture of herself sitting at the same desk. The drawing comes to life and illustrated Mary climbs out of the window. We discover the window is actually in an airship floating over the ocean. Illustrated Mary dives out of the window and into the waters below, where she discovers a sunken city. Interior, Judy's bedroom, day. Judy is on the telephone.
And Judy is suffering from a broken heart.
I'm dumb. I think you find you're dumb, Tony.
She slams down the phone. Cut away, black and white stock footage of nuns.
Her first reaction was to become a nun, but she soon got over that and has thrown herself into a new hobby.
Interior, school printing room, various days. Judy comes into the room and discovers a printing press.
She found an old printing press at school and is starting a newspaper with no boys.
Paddington watches Judy proudly printing the first issue of the Portobello Express.
Now all we need is some news.
Interior, Jonathan's room, day. Paddington helps Jonathan put the finishing touches to a scale model of a steam engine.
Jonathan is joining her at big school this year. He spent the summer building a steam engine, but I'm not supposed to talk about it, as it is not cool.
Cutaway, changing lookbook. A flip-flap book shows Jonathan going from his true self to a new persona wearing ridiculous cyber shades.
He's got a whole new look, and if anyone asks, he's called J-Dog, and is definitely not into steam trains.
Interior, Jonathan's room, day. Jonathan sadly shuts the steam engine away in his cupboard.
But Mr. Brown has been busiest of all.
Interior, Lloyd's of London, day. Mr. Brown stands among a crowd of his colleagues, nervously anticipating the announcement of his promotion.
He recently has a surprise at work. I'm delighted to announce our new head of risk analysis will be Steve Bisbee.
A much younger man steps forward. Henry's face drops.
This has triggered what Mrs. Bird calls a full-blown midlife crisis.
Cut away, food blender, hair dye.
It involves blending his food, painting his hair, and engaging in a process called chakrabatics.
Interior, fitness studio, day. The camera tracks across a group of lycra-clad young people doing the splits.
Open your mind and your legs will follow.
Henry, similarly dressed, tries to do the splits and falls. Exterior, Portobello Road Market, day. Paddington jumps off the dustbin lorry, returning the A to Z.
That's 10 out of 10, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, Paddington.
Keep up the good work.
The bin lorry drives on as Paddington walks down the market, greeting the market traders.
Oh, Aunt Lucy, you sent me to London to find a home, and it's worked out better than I ever imagined. I have a wonderful family, and I've made friends in all sorts of places.
Paddington stops to give some breakfast to Wolfie, a stray dog who lives in an alley off of the Portobello Road.
Here you go, Wolfie. See you tomorrow. I do hope if you could see me, you'd be pleased. Lots of love from Paddington.
Paddington walks up the street into Gruber's Antiques.
Mr. Gruber.
Interior, Gruber's Antiques, day. Paddington walks through to the back of the shop where there are boxes and crates full of fairground memorabilia. Mr. Gruber is coming downstairs from the upper workshop.
Ah, Mr. Brown, come in. Just had a visit from Madame Kozlova, who runs the fair.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they're having a clear out and they found these old crates stuffed with memorabilia. They thought it'd been lost forever.
Paddington growls, interested.
She asked me to sell it for them while they're in town, and I thought there might be something here for your Aunt Lily's birthday.
Good idea.
Paddington starts looking through the memorabilia, touching a Van der Graaf generator, which makes his fur stand on end.
Oh, look at this.
He pulls out a mechanical monkey on a trapeze.
Very nice, Mr. Gruber, but
I know. It's got to be perfect.
I know. Since Uncle Pastuzo died, I'm the only relative she's got left. And it isn't every day a bear turns 100.
Paddington rummages in a trunk, finding a wig and glasses.
Quite so. Ah, how about these rolling shoes?
He holds up some roller skates. Paddington, now wearing the wig and glasses, is unconvinced.
Oh, please, Mr. Gruber, be serious.
Perhaps these rolling days are behind her.
Paddington digs into one of the trunks.
I think you may be right. Ooh, what's this?
He pulls out an old book, and Mr. Gruber consults the list.
Ah, now this must be the popping book. Very interesting.
Really?
But you see, Madame Kozlova's great-grandmother, who started the fair, was a brilliant artist. Every time they visited a new city, she made a popping book to remember it by, and this is London.
Paddington opens the book to reveal a pop-up tower bridge.
Mr. Gruber, it's wonderful. Aunt Lucy's always dreamed of coming to London and never had the chance. But if she saw this, it would be like she were finally here.
As Paddington gazes into the book, the camera pushes in, and we find ourselves in an incredible pop-up world. Interior, pop-up London, day, fantasy. The paper landscape comes to life. A paper ship passes through the bridge, and as the camera swoops in towards it, we discover a three-dimensional Aunt Lucy on board. She waves down to the riverbank where a three-dimensional Paddington is making his way through a crowd of two-dimensional pop-up people towards the gangplank.
Oh, Lucy! Oh, Lucy!
Paddington.
The two bears fly into each other's arms. She holds him tight and then looks around in wonder.
Come with me, Aunt Lucy.
Paddington takes her paw and leads her on a magical journey through the book. They head into a pop-up underground station and emerge via a page turn in a pop-up Piccadilly circus.
Well, what do you think?
It's wonderful.
They cross the road towards a pop-up bus and get on board.
1.5 bears, please.
Mind your step, madam.
What a polite young man.
Another page turn takes them to St. Paul's Cathedral, where they feed the birds. A pigeon coos pleasantly.
What a polite young pigeon.
And then, finally, across the river looking at Big Ben.
Oh, Paddington, you've made an old bear so very happy.
The book closes and we find ourselves back in the real world. Interior Gruber's Antiques, day. Paddington's eyes glisten with joy.
This is perfect.
Mr. Gruber consults the list in more detail.
Ah, we have a snag.
Do we?
You see, this popping book is only one of its kind, and they want rather a lot of money for it.
Paddington reaches into his ear and pulls out a coin.
Mrs. Bird found this coin in my ear at breakfast. Perhaps there's more.
He starts banging the side of his head, hoping to dislodge more money from his ear.
It'll take more than an earful, Mr. Brown. I'm afraid you'll need 1,000 of these coins.
Oh.
Paddington puts the coin back in his ear.
Take another look at the monkey. I think he's super duper.
He offers up the mechanical monkey, which flies off its stand.
I can fix that.
That's very kind, Mr. Gruber. But Aunt Lucy did so much for me when I was a cub, and this could be my way of saying thank you. I'm going to get a job and buy that book.
Well, the barber mentioned he was looking for someone to mind his shop this afternoon. Why don't you try there?
Exterior barber shop, day. Paddington, wearing a barber's jacket, is sweeping up in a smart shop. The owner, Mr. Giuseppe, is leaving.
Back in a few minutes. Ciao, ciao, Paddington.
Ciao, ciao, Mr. Giuseppe.
Interior barbershop day. Alone in the shop, Paddington turns to the broom and addresses it as though it were a customer.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Giuseppe's grooming salon. What can I do for you today, sir? A shave? A light pomade? Or is it just a brush?
Quick trim, please, barber.
Paddington looks round to find a curt customer with the magnificent mane of a grey hair has come into the shop. The customer has mistaken Paddington for the barber.
Oh, I'm not the barber. I just tidy up.
That's all I want. Tidy up the back and sides and nothing off the top.
Yes, but
No buts. Come on, man. Chop chop.
The customer settles down in the chair and closes his eyes.
if you say so, sir.
He takes the scissors from his pocket, but he's not used to them, and they fly straight out of his paw into the ceiling. He looks around for something to use instead of the scissors and spots some electric clippers. He switches them on, but the motor is so strong it makes his arm vibrate wildly. Yes, like that. He manages to grab a hold of the clippers with both paws and clasp them to his chest, but they simply make his whole body vibrate like a road worker with a jackhammer. He starts to bounce around the room with long flecks wrapping around his hands and feet, ensnaring him completely. The clippers tear through a display of brushes as the trail flexing starts snagging on various bits of furniture. Luckily, the customer has dropped off to sleep. Just then, a phone rings. Paddington happens to bounce past and answer it, flipping it up behind his ear with his mouth.
Oh, Giuseppe's? Oh, Mr. Jameson, would you mind if I called back? I think I may be about to a customer.
Now Paddington finds the clippers heading towards the customer. He tries to change course, but is so bound up in the flex that he's powerless to do anything about it. Millimeters from the customer's head, Paddington's progress is miraculously arrested. The cord of the clippers has pulled taut, saving the customer in the nick of time. Whew.
Oh, thank goodness.
But then, the tension in the cable pulls the lever on the chair, and the customer's hair is lowered to the clippers. Paddington yelps as hair flies everywhere. And just to make things worse, the plug flies out of the socket, shooting up to the ceiling fan, and the flex starts being wound up around it. Paddington is yanked off his feet.
I'm just putting you on hold.
The fan whips him up and spins him around at high speed. Exterior, barbershop, day. A mother is giving her son a stern talking to outside the barbershop window.
It's only a haircut, Nelson. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Paddington is hurled from the fan and splats onto the window.
What? Come in. Take a seat. Yeah, let's go somewhere else.
He squeaks off the glass and lands on the floor with a thump. Interior barbershop day. Paddington picks himself up off the floor and stares at the damage. The customer has a 10-inch strip shaved onto the back of his head like a reverse Mohican.
Oh, that's not good.
Paddington tries to put the shaved hair back onto the customer's head, but, of course, it won't stick. Then he has an idea. He gets a jar of marmalade from his pocket, opens it, scoops out a pawful, and smears the marmalade all over the customer's now bald patch.
What is it?
Just putting in some product, sir.
Oh, jolly good. Carry on.
A few moments later, Paddington has finished his repair job. Above him, the fan is still bound up with flex and smoking gently. He raises the customer's chair and shows him his handiwork.
Hold on, sir. I must say it's come a lot better than I expected.
The customer wakes, looks in the mirror. The front is fine, but when he touches the back of his head, he feels something weird and then scrapes the marmalade off of his head.
What the devil is this?
Marmalade.
Marmalade?
Heavy marmalade.
Well, get it off.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
Paddington licks the back of the customer's head. Just then, the barber comes back to see what he is doing.
What is the matter with you?
Paddington. Mr. Giuseppe, I can explain. It's not as bad as it looks.
Just then, the fan sparks, the smoke alarm sounds, and the sprinklers go off, drenching everyone in the shop. Cut to exterior Koslova Steam Fair, dusk. Paddington wrings out his hat as the Browns and Mrs. Bird walk through the entrance to Koslova Steam Fair.
Have you ever been fired, Mr. Brown?
Well, no. But are you sure you're ready for the workplace, Paddington? It's a tough competitive world out there, and I worry a kind, good-natured little bear might get trampled underfoot.
Paddington takes a bite of a toffee apple, but it's so sticky he struggles to free his tongue from the sticky apple.
Well, you can't trust anyone. That's why I'm doing my newspaper alone.
Darling, is this about Tony?
No.
Okay.
Everything's about Tony, and the only reason nobody's helping with your paper is because it's so lame.
Well, at least I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not.
Nor am I. G-Man! Jonathan has spotted a similarly dressed group of other kids, slips into his cyber shades, and fires up an electronic t-shirt.
G-Dogs, Bud Bounce!
They bump fists. Paddington finally manages to pull his tongue from the toffee apple.
But Aunt Lucy said if you're kind and polite, the world will be right.
At least someone's making sense.
And you're kind, Mr. Brown. And you've made it to the top.
I'm nowhere near the top. I've peaked in the middle. Now the hair's gone grey, the belly's popped out, and I've started to creak.
They approach a large crowd who burst into applause as a charming, handsome, charismatic actor with dazzling blue eyes hops up onto the small stage. This is Phoenix Buchanan. Behind him stands an old fairground organ emblazoned with the legend, Kozlova's where all your dreams come true.
Ooh, does that man live in the big house on the corner?
It's Phoenix Buchanan. Judy starts taking photographs with her camera.
Son of a... That celebrity client.
He's one of our Platinum Club members and a very famous actor.
Used to be. Now he does dog food commercials.
Paddington is surprised by her response. Mary explains.
Mrs. Bird doesn't like him because he can never remember her name.
Phoenix finally quietens the crowd.
Thank you. Come on now, that's enough. All right, little bit more. Honestly, what am I like? I'm at my absolute naughtiest tonight.
The audience laughs.
I'm tickled the deepest shade of shrimp to have been asked here tonight to open this wonderful old steam fair. But when Madame Kozlova created this place all those years ago, she didn't do it for the likes of me, whatever I am, celebrity, star, hate all that stuff. Anyway, West End legend, that's another one. No, she made it for you guys, the ordinary people. So I'd like to ask one of you to come up here and start things off. Volunteers.
Paddington's arm shoots up.
Eeny, meeny, miny, bear. How about the young bear? Yes, why not? Come on up, young Ursine.
The audience claps as as Paddington climbs up on stage. Judy takes more photographs.
Very good. And you are?
Paddington Brown.
Of course. You're my new neighbor. You live with Henry and Mary and Miss Fudena.
Mrs. Bird rolls her eyes.
Now, I suppose you know who I am.
Oh, yes. You're a very famous actor.
Phoenix smiles with false humility.
Oh, used to be.
The smile vanishes.
Now you do dog food commercials.
The crowd chuckles. Phoenix smiles through gritted teeth.
Well, man has to eat.
What, dog food?
The crowd laughs again. Phoenix forces himself to laugh along.
Oh, very, very funny. Anyway, they do say, Kosovo's all your dreams come true. If you could have one wish tonight, what would it be?
Oh, that's easy. I'd like to get my Aunt Lucy a birthday present.
Aww.
I've got my eye on a pop-up book of London, made by Madame Kaslova, as it happens.
Phoenix's eyes light up. He's intrigued, but tries to hide it.
But it's rather expensive, so I need to get my paws on an awful lot of money.
Ha! Well, I'm not sure we can promise you that, but we can promise you oodles of fun. So if you'll lend me a paw, I'd like to declare Kosovo Steam Fair open.
Phoenix takes Paddington's paw, and together they pull a lever which starts the fairground organ. Paddington stares in awe as thousands of light bulbs burst into life and a magnificent old ride start moving. He's about to go off and explore when Phoenix takes him to one side and starts probing for information.
Young bear, a word in your ear. This pop-up book.
Do you know it?
I know of it, but I was led to believe it was lost. Where on earth did you find it?
Yes, Mr. Gruber's antique shop. He's keeping it to one side for me, but I really need a job. I don't suppose you have any advice, do you?
Not really, no. I suppose you just have to start at the bottom of the ladder and work your way up.
Do you know what, Mr. Buchanan? You've given me a brilliant idea.
Have I?
I'm going to be a window cleaner.
Exterior, Windsor Gardens, day. Paddington sets to work. He opens his suitcase, takes out a telescope ladder, and extends it against the side of a house. Next, he pulls out a collapsible bucket and pops it open. He adds a dash of soap and fills it from the outside tap. He tries to climb the ladder with the bucket, but the bucket is so heavy he can't lift it off the floor. He has an idea. He gets a length of rope out of his suitcase and ties one end to the bucket. Next, he climbs the ladder, feeds the rope through the drain pipe attached to the wall, closes his eyes, and jumps off. But he's not heavy enough, and opens his eyes to find himself dangling in space. He looks around, wondering how to make himself heavier. He spots a flower pot on the window ledge and grabs it. His weight is now just enough to raise the bucket up and lower him to the ground. Delighted with his success, he puts the flower pot down. Unfortunately, of course, the pot was the only thing making Paddington heavier than the bucket 3 stories above. And so, to his surprise, Paddington finds himself rising up the building as the bucket descends. He ends up dangling from the top of a building while 3 floors below, the bucket hits the floor. As it lands, some of the water sloshes out. Unfortunately, that means Paddington is now much heavier than the bucket. He descends, fast, and lands in a heap on the floor. Dazed, he lets go of the rope so the bucket and all of its soapy contents plummets onto the unfortunate bear's head. The bucket seems to be stuck fast. Dazed, he staggers off around the corner, covered in soap, the bucket still firmly wedged on his head. Interior, Dr. Jafari's home office, morning. Dr. Jafari is doing some paperwork on his desk. Behind him, through the French windows, we can see a very soapy bear staggering through the garden. Dr. Jafari looks up as Paddington bumps into the French windows, the impact finally sending the bucket flying off. Paddington sees Dr. Jafari staring at him. Trying to cover up his mistake, he starts polishing the windows with his fur, using himself as a is it chamois? What leather? Dr. Jafar watches as Paddington smears soap on the window with his belly, then wipes the windows with his back. They are now sparkling, and the doctor is delighted. Interior, Paddington's attic room, day. Paddington puts his first coins in a huge jar, and on it is a label, Aunt Lucy's birthday fund. Exterior, Windsor Gardens, day, montage. Time-lapse of Paddington cleaning all the windows along the street. He ends up at the Colonel's where he rings the bell.
Window cleaner!
No, thank you.
Are you sure, Colonel? They're awfully dirty.
I don't care, and I'm not paying.
Perhaps I'll clean them anyway.
Interior, Colonel's house, day. The Colonel drinks tea in his gloomy living room. Suddenly, he feels a warm light on his face. He looks up to see Paddington cleaning his window, sunlight washing into a room for the first time in years. He goes to the window and looks out. Miss Kitts waves to him from the newsstand. He tentatively waves back. She does a mime for his entertainment, pretending to go into the basement of the kiosk. He reciprocates by miming being in an elevator. They laugh. A connection begins to form. Suddenly, the mood is shattered by a rap at the door. The Colonel opens up to find Mr. Curry, wearing a high-vis jacket, a hat, and a megaphone attached to his belt. Good afternoon, Colonel. Are you aware there's a bear on your roof?
Yes, he's cleaning my windows.
Well, it's not for me to say, sir, but I wouldn't care to have an undesirable crawling all over my roof, and as commander of your community defense force.
Is that an official position, Mr. Curry? Or have you just got yourself a yellow coat?
He slams the door in Mr. Curry's face. Interior Paddington's attic room, various days, montage. A sequence of jump cuts shows coins going into the huge jar on different days. Exterior, various streets, various days. Paddington cleans Wolfie, who has never looked better. Paddington washes the windscreen of a dustbin lorry, clinging to the wipers. The bin man reads his A to Z inside. Paddington in scuba gear squeegees the inside of an aquarium. He waves to the cyclist who works there. Henry, at work in the high office, is startled to see Paddington cleaning the window. Pull back to reveal he's cleaning the whole of the Shard. A calypso band are on the gondola, playing as the song ends. Exterior, Gruber's Antiques, night. Paddington walks home past Mr. Gruber's as a distant clock chimes 4. He stops and peers through the window at the pop-up book in a glass case and smiles to himself.
One more day, Aunt Lucy.
But then, just then he hears the sound of breaking glass. He goes around to the alley next to the shop and spots a shadowy figure climbing through the second-floor window.
Mr. Gruber!
Startled, the figure turns to reveal he is a bearded thief.
Oh?
You? You're not Mr. Gruber.
Looks.
The thief climbs through the window, but Paddington sets off in pursuit. He runs to the window and winds up his ladder.
Oh, no, you don't!
Interior, Gruber's Antiques, night. The thief runs downstairs, smashes the display case containing the pop-up book, and grabs it. Interior, Mr. Gruber's upstairs workshop, continuous. Paddington tumbles through the window into Mr. Gruber's workshop, but suddenly the burglar alarm shrieks to life. Paddington goes to the window and sees the thief burst out of the front door and down the road carrying the pop-up book.
Stop! Thief!
Interior, Gruber's Antiques, night. Paddington careers down the stairs and out of the shop.
Give me back that book!
Exterior, Portobello Road, night. A police car pulls to the top of the Portobello Road as Paddington bolts down the road. Interior police car, night. A serious-minded policewoman grabs the radio.
Robbery in progress at Gruber's Antiques. Suspect is a small bear and a red cat in a duffel coat.
She gets out and gives chase. Exterior, Portobello Road, alley, night. Paddington chases the thief down an alley towards the canal. Exterior canal, towpath, night. Paddington emerges from the alley onto the towpath. He looks around and sees the thief taking a bicycle from the top of the canal boat and cycling away. Paddington puts his paw in his mouth and whistles. Exterior alleyway, night. Wolfie pricks up his ears and runs. Exterior canal towpath, night. Paddington emerges from a tunnel riding the dog like a horse, galloping after the thief, who has the book in a pannier on the back of his bicycle. Paddington pulls alongside the bicycle and reaches for the book, but just as he takes it, the thief notices what is going on and grabs the book before Paddington can get away. The pair tussle for the book, but suddenly the thief veers off up an incline and across a bridge ahead of Paddington. The pair of them are now on different sides of the canal as they head to the basin, and the thief is pulling away. But Paddington isn't done yet. He spurs the dog into life. They leap up onto the roof of a boat moored by the towpath and jump onto an island in the middle of the canal basin. They crash through the undergrowth. Ducks, geese, and other birds fly up into the air, squawking wildly.
Excuse me, coming through. Who are you?
The thief looks round to see Paddington emerge from the undergrowth, hanging from the legs of a swan.
Strike a light!
Amazed by the sight, he loses control of the bike and falls off as it goes into the water. High above, hanging from the swan, Paddington watches the thief get on his feet and run off the canal.
The book is reserved for Lucy! Oh, hello there!
The swan has looked around and starts pecking at Paddington.
Oh, not
Paddington lets go and falls to the towpath beneath. Fortunately, he lands in the back of the dog, and together they race once more after the thief.
Thank you, Wolfie! Attaboy!
Exterior, Windsor Square, night. Paddington follows the thief towards the newspaper kiosk. The thief stops as he hears a police siren heading towards him and from the other direction. Cornered, he raises his hand, still holding the pop-up book.
All right, you got me.
Paddington gets off the dog and walks towards him.
And over that book!
Afraid I can't do that. Cheerio.
The thief turns around and then suddenly, Poof! He quite literally disappears in a puff of smoke.
But where did he go?
Paddington looks around, astounded, as police cars close in from all directions. He then hears a voice behind him.
Hold it right there.
Oh, thank goodness you're here.
Put your paws in the air.
But
Paddington lifts his paws in the air.
But I'm not the thief. I was chasing the thief, then he...
Disappeared in a puff of smoke.
Well, yes.
Exterior Windsor Gardens. Moments later, Paddington's friends and neighbors come to their windows as the policewoman leads him up the street in handcuffs. The little bear hangs his head in shame. The Browns run out of their house, frantic, but a policewoman holds them back.
Paddington?
Please, there must be a mistake.
No mistake, sir. What's going on? Caught red-handed robbing Gruber's antiques.
Well, 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 the truth is out. We opened our hearts to that bear. We opened our doors. Well, you did. I kept mine triple locked in accordance with the guidelines. But all along, he was robbing you blind. I hate to say I told you so, but I did definitely tell you so. The neighbors mutter to each other. Can this be true? The door of the police van is slammed shut. Paddington is driven away, his little face pressed against the barred rear window, a picture of fear and shame. Interior attic room, night. The bearded thief sits in front of a theatrical makeup mirror. He talks to himself in a gruff London accent.
Nice little hole, no mistake.
The thief pulls at his nose, and it peels off his face. His eyebrows follow, and finally, his beard.
Turned out to be quite a stroke of luck, the bear turning up when he did. Coppers think he done it, and we're in the clear.
His wig comes off to reveal the thief is Phoenix in disguise.
Indeed, Magwitch. We have quite a performance, you and I, just like the old days.
Phoenix catches sight of a costumed mannequin in the mirror, dressed like Hamlet with a skull in one hand.
Why the lemon face, Hamlet? If you have something to say, please share it with us all.
Phoenix stands, and we find him in a room as full of mannequins. All the great characters he has played over the years. He walks among them, addressing them as if they were real.
It is not, nor it cannot come to good. Oh, really? You and your dreary conscience? Tell me this. What would you prefer? That you sit here gathering dust while I humiliate myself in a spaniel costume on the television? Or that we all return in glory with the greatest one-man show the West End has ever seen?
The sound of an enormous audience applauding floats through Phoenix's mind as he imagines himself lapping up praise.
I know what you're thinking, Scrooge. It'll cost a fortune, but if I'm right, that's exactly what this book will provide. This is no dusty old antique. Hidden on every page, a little lady pointing to a clue. Find all the clues, we're rich again, and our dog food days are done.
Cutaway, interior aristocratic dining room, night. Silver Cloach sits in a linen cloth table. A butler's hand removes the cover to reveal a gilt dog food bowl.
Dinner is served, master.
We pull out to reveal Phoenix is dressed in a dog suit.
Thank you, Simpkins.
Phoenix turns and speaks to the camera.
If, like me, your dog likes to maintain standards, may I recommend Harley's Gourmet Din-Dins? More taste, more goodness, more, dare I say, class.
He puts a forkful of dog food into his mouth and struggles to pull a contented expression.
Woof.
Harley's gourmet dog food, not to be consumed by humans.
Exterior courtroom, day. Various legal types walk towards a courtroom. Interior courtroom, day. Paddington stands alone in the dock, confused and afraid. The Browns and his friends are all in attendance. All rise.
Deep breath, Paddington. Remember what Mr. Brown said. You're young. You've done nothing wrong. You'll be fine. As long as you get a fair-minded judge.
Order, order.
But he looks up to see the judge is the same man from the barber shop, and he's monumentally annoyed.
Oh dear.
We will now hear the case of the Crown versus Paddington Brown.
First, Mr. Gruber gives evidence.
Oh, yes, he loved the book. He'd set his heart on top of it.
So you discussed how expensive it was?
Yeah, but he was raising the money. I refuse to believe young Mr. Brown would ever burglarize my shop.
Paddington is delighted to see his friend stand up for him. Next, a forensic investigator is on the stand. He gestures to a plan of Gruber's antiques.
Paw prints were found here, here, and here, and a substance later identified as marmalade was found here.
The prosecutor produces a jar of Paddington's marmalade.
And is this the same marmalade?
The forensic investigator dips his finger in the jar and rubs it around his gums like a cop testing for cocaine.
Yes, it is.
The court gasps, the tide starting to turn against Paddington.
Thank you very much.
She steps away with the jar, but the forensic investigator snatches it off her and starts eating more marmalade.
Thank you very much. This evidence is very Moorish.
Finally, Phoenix takes the stand.
Phoenix Buchanan, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
May my entrails be plucked forth and wound about my neck should I deceive. I do. Prison is no laughing matter, and I should know. I spent 3 years in Les Miserables.
The court laughs.
Mr. Buchanan, you live on the same street as the defendant?
Yes, I have known the family for years. Henry and Marion, the unforgettable Mrs. Funana.
Mrs. Bird rolls her eyes.
And you were an eyewitness to the events that night?
Indeed I was.
Everyone leans forward, keen to hear what he has to say.
I was up late writing my one-man show when I became aware of a hullabaloo on the street below. I went to my awards room, which is a large room, overlooking the kiosk, and I saw young Paddington riding a rather disreputable-looking hound.
The prosecutor produces a pencil drawing of the thief.
Mary Brown drew this based on the bear's description of the man he claims he was chasing.
Phoenix looks admiringly at the face in the picture.
Ah, handsome devil, isn't he? Strong cheekbones, noble forehead, dazzling eyes.
Yes, but did you see him? Your answer will tell us whether the bear is guilty. Did you see this man?
Paddington leans forward, desperate to be cleared.
Alas, I did not.
The court descends into uproar, the Browns despair.
But perhaps he had already vanished. I beg you, go easy on him. He is but a cub.
Alone in the dock, Paddington has lost all hope. Match cut to interior prison atrium night. Paddington stands behind a barred door wearing a gray striped prison uniform and hat. He carries a rolled blanket. A stern warden addresses him.
Paddington Brown, 10 years for grand theft.
Oh, but I never.
And grievous barbarly harm.
Paddington growls, unable to argue with that one.
Follow me.
Buzzer sounds. The barred door slides open. Sad calypso music plays as Paddington follows a warden anxiously into the high prison atrium and up a staircase. There in the atrium are the calypso band, wearing prison uniforms and singing a jailhouse lament. The warden unlocks a cell door and Paddington steps inside.
Mrs. Brown, usually reads me a story for bed. I don't suppose.
Sorry, son. No bedtime stories in here.
The warden slams the door shut behind him. Interior Paddington's prison cell, night. Paddington climbs up to a pipe under the window and starts writing a letter.
Dear Aunt Lucy, a great deal has happened since I last wrote. I'm afraid there's been a bit of a mix-up with your present, and the upshot is I've had to leave Windsor Gardens and move somewhere else.
He finds he can't quite bring himself to tell Aunt Lucy the truth, so tries to put a positive spin on things. As he writes, the camera pulls away from the cell window to reveal he is one of dozens in a vast, imposing building.
It's not quite as charming as the Brown's house, but it's not all bad. It's a period property. In fact, it's one of the most substantial Victorian buildings in London, and the security arrangements are second to none.
A searchlight sweeps across walls topped with barbed wire.
I'm only allowed to see the Browns once a month. I wonder what they're doing now.
Interior kitchen night montage. Mary puts up her drawing on a corkboard and starts the start of what will become of her crime wall. Interior law library night montage. Henry surrounded by textbooks looking exhausted. Interior school printing room night. Judy prints a newspaper. Interior Jonathan's room night. Jonathan puts up a poster. Have you seen this man? Interior the Browns hallway night. Mrs. Bird is standing at the foot of the stairs reading a book called Vanishing Acts and How to Do Them. Using a washing up brush like a wand, she vanishes a turnip and looks around, amazed. Interior Paddington cell night. Paddington gazes out of the window, his eyes full of tears.
I do hope they don't forget me.
He scrubs the last sentence out, pulling himself together.
Of course they won't. They're the Browns you're talking about. They'll sort everything out, and I'll be able to go home and get your present, and everything will be right as rain. I just need to hold on till then.
Exterior Tower Bridge night. The iconic landmark silhouetted against the night sky. Interior North Tower, Tower Bridge night. A whistling security guard walks past various royal suits of armor on display in front of a large Gothic window. As soon as the guard has left the room, one of the suits moves, lifting up its visor to reveal Phoenix. He runs clanking out of the room. Exterior Tower Bridge night. Still wearing the armor, Phoenix climbs out of the window and clanks along the elevated walkway above the bridge to the coat of arms in the middle. The Thames swirls below. Phoenix takes a closer look to the back of the crest and spots a letter carved into the stone.
D. The hunt begins.
Interior prison atrium morning. The warden is doing morning roll call.
324, 325, 326.
Paddington emerges from his cell and takes a deep breath.
Here goes, Paddington. Manners.
Paddington and the other prisoners file out of their cells. As he approaches the central stairs, Paddington comes face to face with a tattooed prisoner, T-Bone.
Good morning. How would you like to start a gardening club?
How would you like to be buried in a very deep hole?
Paddington wouldn't like that at all, so falls silent. They pass the warden, who gives them their jobs as they go.
Brown P. Laundry duty.
Interior prison laundry, day. 4 industrial washing machines dominate a basement laundry, labeled bedding, towels, uniforms, colors. Paddington looks around, trying to find the laundry.
Laundry, laundry, laundry. Ah! Laundry!
Paddington spots a button on the wall marked laundry. A distant mechanical clanking suggests activity, but only after a few seconds does Paddington spot the hatch above him. He looks up just as the hatch opens, covering him in an avalanche of clothes. He emerges from the pile, hiccups, and pulls a single red sock from his mouth. Horrified, he throws the sock away, but it lands on his hat. Paddington sets about loading the machines and starting them. He takes off his own clothes, throws them into the uniforms machine, and starts it. Pleased with his work, he turns away and then freezes as he remembers something. He turns slowly back to the machines to see the single red sock in the uniforms wash. He tries to open the door, but it is locked. He heaves on the handle with all his might, but it snaps off. He stares into the window of the washing machine, the water turning an ominous pink.
Oh, it's only one red sock. What's the worst that could happen?
Interior prison canteen day. A room of hardened prisoners, all wearing bright pink uniforms, glare fiercely at Paddington.
Afternoon, chaps. If you ask me, the pink really brightens the place up a bit.
If you ask me, you should pipe down and eat your dinner, 'cause it might be your last.
Paddington gulps.
Yeah.
Okay.
He walks towards the tables, his tray rattling in fear. He sits at a vacant spot, doffs his hat to the prisoners on either side, and looks at the disgusting slop on his plate. He lifts a spoonful to his nose and sniffs. It's bad. A friendly-looking Australian prisoner smiles encouragingly.
Don't worry. I used to be a restaurant critic. It's not as bad as it looks.
Oh,
Paddington eats a spoonful and sicks up into his mouth.
It's worse.
what is this?
Spoon, a wise, worldly man who's seen it all before, leans over. He's making a model of a windmill with matchsticks.
Nobody knows.
An old West country prisoner with a mustache pipes up.
Yeah, we've been eating it 3 times a day for the last 10 years.
Why does someone have a word with the chef?
A dozy-looking prisoner, the professor, drops his mug.
With Knuckles?
2 things to remember if you want to survive in here. Keep your head down and never talk to Knuckles.
Thank you.
A quiet prisoner, Charlie Rumble, growls in agreement, but a devious plan has occurred to T-Bone.
I think it's a great idea. Tell you what, son. You get Knuckles to change the menu, and we might forget about you making us look like a bunch of pink flamingos. Huh?
Paddington is delighted at the prospect of making peace.
Right then, I will.
He looks around at the chef, a mountain of a man in a striped chef's apron and hat, his back turned towards us. Undeterred, Paddington gets to his feet.
Man, I really wouldn't.
Aunt Lucy said, if you look for the good in people, you'll find it.
The other prisoners watch as he walks over to the counter.
She obviously never met Knuckles.
The prisoners go quiet as Paddington reaches Knuckles. He raps on the counter.
Excuse me, Mr. Knuckles?
Knuckles turns to reveal a huge granite-faced bruiser. Yeah, that's about right. This is a man who has faced 1,000 enemies and defeated them all, except perhaps himself.
Yes.
The warden whispers nervously into his radio.
Send a medic to the canteen.
I just wondered if I could have a quick word about the food.
You want to complain?
Oh no, I wouldn't say complain.
That's a shame, because I just love it when people complain.
Knuckles' huge fist closes around a wooden rolling pin on the counter, but Paddington doesn't detect the threat.
Really? Oh, well in that case, it's very gritty and lumpy. And as for the bread...
He picks up a baguette and bonks it against Knuckles' head, knocking his hat askew.
Need I say more? I think we need to completely overhaul the menu. Now, I know we're working to a tight budget, but we could at least add some sauce.
He picks up a bottle of ketchup and accidentally squirts some onto Knuckles' apron. Knuckles slowly looks down.
Oh, sorry about that. I just...
He tries to wipe it off, but the stain just spreads.
No, that's just rubbing it in. Don't worry. I know it gets ketchup stains out.
He picks up a mustard bottle, squirts some onto the stain, and immediately has second thoughts.
Hang on. Was it mustard? No, that just made it worse. Does anyone know what works on ketchup?
He turns to the other prisoners to find that they are all hiding under their tables.
Chaps?
Forget the medic.
The penny slowly drops as Paddington turns back to Knuckles, who snaps the rolling pin in two.
Better send the priest.
Knuckles grabs Paddington and lifts him off the counter.
Now you listen to me, you little maggot.
Listening?
Nobody criticizes my food.
Right.
Nobody squirts condiments on my apron.
Got it?
Nobody bonks me on the head with a baguette.
No bonking.
I'll overhaul the menu, all right.
Really?
Dish of the day?
Yes.
Bear pie.
Paddington takes the sandwich out of his hat and pushes it into Knuckles' mouth and shuts his eyes, awaiting the end. But Knuckles chews, and astonishment creeps across his face.
What is this?
It's a marmalade sandwich.
Marmalade?
My Aunt Lucy taught me to make it.
Knuckles lowers Paddington onto the counter as he eats.
You mean you can make this?
Well, yes.
Stand aside.
Paddington nods. Knuckles makes a declaration to the room.
Get off the floor, you bunch of yellow bellies, and listen to me. This bear is now under my protection. Anyone touches a hair on his back, I'll answer to Knuckles McGinty. That's Knuckles with a capital N.
Knuckles brandishes his fist. Across 8 knuckles are the letters of his name, Knuckles. T-Bone is frustrated that his plan has been thwarted.
Thank you, Mr. McGinty.
Don't think me yet. I don't do nothing for no one for nothing.
Beg your pardon?
You get my protection, so long as you make that marmalade. Deal?
Knuckles spits in his hand and proffers it to Paddington. Paddington, puzzled, spits on Knuckles' hands too.
Deal.
Interior Gruber's Antiques Day. Mary is putting up a poster in Mr. Gruber's window.
Somebody's got to recognize him sooner or later. Are you all right, Mr. Gruber?
Oh, Robert's been an nincompoop.
Why? What is it?
There's something about his whole business that's been tickling my brain box.
Oh, yes.
He picks up a pad, takes out a pen out of her hair, and licks it.
Let me take you back to the night of the robbery. When young Mr. Brown called out, the thief took to his heels and ran downstairs.
As Mr. Gruber talks, an animation of Mary's illustration of the thief appears in the shop.
And went straight through the front door, setting off the alarm?
And the illustrated thief grabs the book and leaves.
Ah, but he didn't go straight through the doors. He came all the way over here to get the popping book. Why not some jewellery or a vase? He can't know much about antiquities.
Or maybe he knew something about that book that we don't.
Exterior Kozlova's Steam Fair, night. The Browns are talking to the owner of the fairground, a colorfully dressed Russian who works as a fortune teller.
You may find this hard to believe, Madame Kozlova, but Paddington is innocent, and we think the real thief may have broken in just to take that book.
The pop-up book.
We know it sounds far-fetched.
But anything you could tell us about it could be useful.
That is quite the story.
Really?
Mary is fascinated. Henry, skeptical.
Come with me. I'll show you where it all happened. You see, my great-grandmother, who started this fair, was the greatest showman of all her generation. She could tame lions, breathe fire, swallow swords, but she was most famous for her trapeze.
As Madame Kozlova walks up to the Spiegel tent, the camera pushes inside, where we find ourselves in the 1930s. Interior Spiegel tent, night, flashback. A crowd of people watch Madame Kozlova perform above them.
They call her the Flying Swan. Wherever she went, she was showered with gifts and made a fortune.
As Madame Kozlova takes the applause, people throw flowers. One rich man in a fur cape tosses her a diamond necklace.
But where there is fortune, there is also jealousy.
In the wings stands a magician watching on enviously. Interior Spiegel tent later that night. Spiegel tent is empty. The magician stands by the trapeze ropes, filing through them.
The magician wanted it for himself, so one night he cut through the ropes and the flying swan became the dying swan.
Interior Spiegel tent the next night. Madame Kozlova is performing her act when the rope snaps and she plummets to the floor. The magician rushes over to where she lies, pretending to be concerned, but surreptitiously pulls a keychain from around her neck and slips away through the crowd. Exterior, Madame Kozlova's caravan, night. The magician darts up to the steps to the painted wagon. Interior, Madame Kozlova's caravan, night. The magician uses the key to open the strong box.
He went to her caravan and opened her strongbox, but instead of her treasure, all he found was a pop-up book. 12 Landmarks of London.
He leafs through the pop-up book, baffled. Suddenly, a stagehand bursts in with a couple of policemen. The rest of the fairground workers aren't far behind.
They had him cornered, but he disappeared in a puff of smoke, and neither he nor the treasure was ever seen again.
Suddenly, just like Phoenix in Windsor Gardens, the magician disappears into a puff of smoke, leaving the book behind. Interior, Henry and Mary's bedroom, night. Mary is sitting on the bed. Henry is out of sight in their ensuite bathroom.
I knew there was something special about that pop-up book. Why else would she have kept it in her strongbox?
Henry emerges from the bathroom in a blue face mask.
You're not telling me you believe all that guff, are you?
He starts rubbing it off.
Madame Kozlova drew 12 London landmarks in that book. Well, what if they're not just landmarks? What if they're, I don't know, clues?
Clues?
To where she hid her fortune.
Do you mean a treasure map?
Exactly.
Henry turns away, rolling his eyes.
And that's why the thief took it from Mr. Gruber's. First thing tomorrow, we need to go to every landmark in that pop-up book, see if we can sniff out anything suspicious.
Too many adventure stories, Mary.
What?
She's a fortune teller. She spun you a yarn. It's what they do.
Honestly, darling, you're so close-minded these days.
What's that supposed to mean?
What happened to the man I married? He'd believe me.
Henry checks his crow's feet in the mirror.
Oh, him. He's gone, Mary. Afraid your husband's just a creaky old man, not bullseye brown.
Henry looks in the mirror and imagines himself back in his heyday, standing at a coconut shy. He throws a ball and knocks over 3 different coconuts.
Bullseye!
Oh, Henry. Henry. Henry.
Henry snaps out of his reverie and picks up a poster.
But the point is, we're not going to help Paddington by going on a wild goose chase. We're looking for this scruffy chance and not some swashbuckling pirate hunting for buried treasure.
Mary stares at the poster, her theory taking shape.
Well, I think there's more to him than meets the eye.
Interior, Phoenix's attic room, night. Phoenix sits at his makeup mirror, readying himself for a new disguise.
I think somehow he knew the story of the Kozlova fortune and is out there now trying to find it.
Phoenix looks up at an old photograph of the magician from Madame Kozlova's story.
Well, grandfather, tonight we take another step closer. The setting? St. Paul's Cathedral.
The pop-up book stands on the dressing table, open at St. Paul's Cathedral. Match cut 2, exterior, St. Paul's Cathedral, night. A flock of nuns process up the steps.
But how to enter unobserved? Enter Sister Agatha.
Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, night. The nuns process through the cathedral. One of them is Phoenix, disguised in a habit. He ducks out of the procession and slips into a staircase, his habit covering the camera and taking us into darkness. Interior, Paddington's cell, night. In the darkness, we hear a voice.
Wakey, wakey.
Paddington opens his eyes to find Knuckles inches from his nose. Thunder crashes in the distance.
Marmalade time.
Interior, prison canteen, night. The warden lets Paddington and Knuckles into the canteen, locking the door behind them.
Mr. McGinty? Mr. McGinty?
What do you want?
Well, the thing is, I'm actually innocent.
Ha!
And I wondered if you had any advice on how to clear my name. Now that we're friends.
Friends? I'm your boss, not your buddy.
Oh, well, after you.
Paddington holds the kitchen door open for Knuckles.
Why? So you can stab me in the back?
No, because it's polite. Aunt Lucy said, if we're kind and polite, the world will be right.
You were ahead of me, now you're behind. That makes you a sap.
Interior prison kitchen continuous. Paddington follows him into the kitchen.
Ingredients are over there.
He nods over to some shelves and flops into a chair.
Aren't you going to help?
Nope. Now get on with it.
But there's 500 hungry prisoners coming for breakfast, so I'll need 1,000 juicy oranges.
And rule number 1, no talking.
He opens a prison newspaper, The Hard Times. Paddington starts humming as he puts on his own striped apron and picks up a chef's hat. Knuckles slowly lowers his paper.
Rule number 2, no humming or singing or any other expressions of bonhomie.
Paddington nods, wanting to stay on the right side of him. Knuckles raises his paper, and for 2 seconds, there's peace. But then he hears a straining, heaving noise. Knuckles lowers his paper and looks over to see Paddington trying to heave a large sack of oranges off a high shelf.
These sacks are awfully heavy. Oh, that's heavy. Come on, Paddington. Do it.
He
Well,
finally
take them one at a time, then. Sorry.
So he finally manages.
He finally manages to pull a sack off the shelf, but it pulls all the other sacks with it, burying him completely. Knuckles begrudgingly goes over and with one hand lifts an enormous sack to reveal Paddington underneath.
These sacks are awfully heavy.
Take them one at a time, then.
Right, one at a
Knuckles drops the sack of oranges back on top of him.
time.
Knuckles goes back to his paper, hoping for peace. But behind him, Paddington carries a single orange from the shelf to the counter, patting on the floor as he goes.
One juicy orange.
He walks back to the shelf and returns with another orange.
2 juicy oranges.
Then back and forth once more.
3 juicy oranges. 4.
Now what are you doing?
Well, taking them one at a time.
Knuckles flies into a rage.
One sack at a time.
I'm sorry, I'm finding this a very stressful working environment. Aunt Lucy said.
Aunt Lucy. I've had it up to here with Aunt Lucy. She sounds like a proper old bag to me.
Paddington slowly turns his head towards Knuckles.
I beg your pardon?
I said your Aunt Lucy sounds like the most naive, gullible, mushy-brained. What's going on?
Paddington is giving Knuckles a hard stare. It is having a remarkable effect, bringing him out in a cold sweat.
What are you looking at me like that for it? It's awful hot in here. Are you hot? I'm hot. Did I leave the oven on?
It's called a hard stare. Aunt Lucy taught me to do them when people had forgotten their manners.
You don't need to tell me about hard stares. I practically invented them. Pretty good for a bear, though, I'll give you that.
Now, Mr. McGinty, I may look like a hardened criminal to you, but I am innocent. And if you're not going to help me clear my name, you could at least help me make this marmalade.
All right, I'll help. I doubt I'll be much use to you, though. These weren't exactly made for cooking.
Oh, I don't know. Looks to me like you got yourself a great pair of orange squeezers.
Orange squeezers?
Paddington and Knuckles start to make marmalade. The camera circles them, jumping forward each time it passes a pillar. Paddington selects the oranges from a pile, while Knuckles squeezes them dry, not even chopping them in half. Paddington and Knuckles stand at chopping boards, armed with knives and a pile of orange peels.
Now, we have to be very careful with the knives. Aunt Lucy said that sensible bears.
Knuckles eviscerates dozens of peels at machine gun speed.
Where on earth did you learn to use a knife like that?
You don't want to know.
Well, it's jolly good.
Next, Paddington stirs the mixture while Knuckles tips in the rind. They start working together.
Now?
Now,
We move closer, circling around the bubbling amber liquid as they add sugar, cinnamon, chili, and lemon. Knuckles becomes involved in the creative process.
time for the sugar. That's what turns the juice into marmalade.
How much?
A lot. Same again. A squeeze of lemon, a pinch of cinnamon, and just a bit more sugar.
Paddington pours in another huge amount of sugar. Knuckles is surprisingly eager to know how they got in.
Well, is it good?
It's too soon to tell. We'll only really know when it's set.
Exterior, St. Paul's Cathedral, morning. Judy, Jonathan, and Mary hurry in behind a tour group.
Designed by Sir Christopher Wren, St. Paul's Cathedral is one of London's most famous landmarks.
Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, morning. The tour guide continues as they walk in.
Sadly, the Great Dome is closed to visitors today as one of its statues was destroyed in a bizarre accident last night. But if you follow me this way,
They see a taped-off crime scene containing the remnants of a smashed statue and talk to the security guard on duty, the sleazy guard from the Geographers Guild in Paddington.
Excuse me, what happened here?
A nun went berserk. It happens.
He nods over to the chapel where 100 nuns are being held. One very elderly specimen totters away with a walking stick.
Hold it there, sister. You're not going anywhere till the detective says so. Spin it around.
The elderly nun heads back to the group.
The police have rounded them all up, but if you ask me, the real culprit slipped the net.
What makes you say that?
Because I saw her. That's what.
As the security guard tells his story, we see the events of the previous evening from his point of view. Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, flashback. The security guard looks down from the top of the dome at the nuns parading through the cathedral.
There was a patrol in the upper dome watching the nuns parade far below, then something caught my eye.
Phoenix slips out of the procession.
One of them broke free from the herd and made her way into the Whispering Gallery.
Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, geometric staircase. Phoenix races up the staircase. Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, Whispering Gallery, flashback. Phoenix arrives up in the gallery and makes his way round to the angel statue indicated in the pop-up book. He pulls himself up into the base of the statue, inadvertently loosening the rod that secures it to the wall. He finds the letter A engraved between the angel's wings.
Only the good Lord knows what she was doing up there, but she was never going to get away with it. Not while I'm Vice Deputy Head of Security.
The security guard appears with a mug of tea.
Oi!
Phoenix swings down to the gallery flood, putting the whole body weight on the rod which secures the statue to the wall. It breaks free, and as Phoenix runs off, the statue topples to the ground, where it smashes into 1,000 pieces. The security guard grabs his radio.
Attention all units!
Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, geometric staircase, flashback. Phoenix runs down the stairs, pulling off his nun's outfit.
An unusually attractive nun is causing mayhem in the cathedral dome. Close in, close in.
By the time Phoenix arrived at the bottom of the stairs, he has transformed himself into a decrepit old archbishop. Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral. Brilliant. Whispering Gallery, flashback.
I set off at lightning speed.
The security guard ambles off after Phoenix. Exterior, St. Paul's Cathedral, flashback. Phoenix, still dressed as an archbishop, passes some other guards without receiving a second glance.
By the time we had locked the place down, she disappeared into the night.
Good evening, my sons.
Good evening, Your Grace.
Phoenix disappears into the night. We return to the present. Interior, St. Paul's Cathedral, day. The security guard gazes wistfully into the middle distance.
Most beautiful woman I've seen in a long time.
Mary pulls a pencil out of the bun in her hair.
Could you describe her?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure.
Ew. Interior prison canteen, morning. The prisoners sit in silence, staring at their plates. Everyone has a marmalade sandwich in front of them. Paddington addresses them from behind the counter.
Gentlemen, for breakfast this morning, Chef McGinty would like to propose an orange marmalade served on a wet bed of warm crustless bread, topped with another piece of warm crustless bread. Bon appetit.
The prisoners all stare at Paddington, not knowing how to respond. But Knuckles appears out of the serving hatch.
2 choices. Take it or leave it.
Knuckles slams the hatch shut. Interior prison kitchen, morning. Paddington enters to find Knuckles tidying up. Paddington can see that Knuckles is on edge and thinks he knows why.
Are you all right, Knuckles?
Yes.
Why don't you come and join the others?
Don't want to.
Are you scared what they might think?
No. What do they think? Did they like it? Did they say anything? What'd they say?
Well,
Knuckles flies into a rage, knocking pans over.
They hated it. I knew it. My father always said I'd amount to nothing. He was right.
Knuckles! Knuckles!
What?
Come and look.
Paddington opens the hatch. Knuckles looks through to see the interior prison canteen continues. The prisoners bite into their sandwiches. They make ecstatic noises as they eat the best food they've tasted in years.
Come on.
The pair emerge into the canteen to a round of applause. Knuckles is bursting with amazed pride.
Paddington, I got a strange warm tingle in my tum-tum.
I think that's called pride, Knuckles.
Well, I don't like it.
Fib stands as the applause dies down.
You got anything else?
What?
You know, for pudding.
No.
Fair enough.
I'm afraid we only know how to make marmalade. So unless you know any recipes...
Guess not. You're wasting your time with them. They wouldn't know their pectin from their paprika.
Spoon plucks up the courage and stands.
Well, my grandmother used to do a lovely chocolate roulade. I think I can remember the recipe.
The professor stands.
Jolly Rumble makes a mean apple crumble.
Charlie, standing, agrees with a low growl. T-Bone stands.
And I can do a strawberry panna cotta with a pomegranate glaze.
Well, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it, Knuckles?
Yeah.
Come on, then. Let's get cooking.
Logan. The Calypso band plays Love Thy Neighbor as we see in time lapse Paddington transforming the prison. Interior prison kitchen morning montage. Paddington pushes a dessert trolley through the kitchen. As he goes, the room transforms from a neglected dingy space to a sparkling temple of food, thronging with prisoner chefs. Spoon hands him a chocolate roulade.
Thank you, Spoon.
Knuckles puts an enormous cake on Paddington's trolley.
Whoa!
There you go, Paddington.
Oh, Knuckles!
I need those petite fours now.
We follow Paddington as he goes through the swing doors, interior prison canteen day montage, and serves prisoners food. The time lapse continues as the canteen turns into a delightful terror room around Paddington. Red gingham tablecloths appear along with centerpieces, cake stands, and china tea sets. The prisoners eat and drink politely and daintily. Paddington passes the professor and puts Knuckles' cake before him. The professor immediately takes the piece with his hands.
Excuse me, Professor. What would Aunt Lucy say?
Always use a cake fork.
Well, then.
The professor puts a cake fork into the cake and then levers the whole piece into his mouth. Paddington sets off once more and hands the warden Spoon's chocolate roulade.
Here for a taste, Warden.
Thank you, Paddington.
We reach the end of the canteen and Paddington peels off, but the camera pushes through the clock mechanism. Interior clock, dusk. Past the swinging pendulum as hours whiz by, then out to interior prison atrium, dusk to night. The camera glides down as the whole room is transformed. Welcome mats appear outside the barred doors, along with hanging baskets, bunting, and fairy lights. Prisoners knit, dance, play chess, and raise a giant crochet banner which reads, "Prison, Sweet Prison." Interior warden's office, night. The warden sits in his office at the top of the prison clock tower. By his desk is the model of the prison. He is reading a bedtime story into the microphone.
And it turned out the monster wasn't such a monster after all, and they all lived happily ever after. The end.
The prisoners chorus out like children wanting more.
Aww.
Now, you lot need your sleep.
Interior, Paddington's prison cell, night. Paddington is lying on his bed. We can hear the warden's voice through the tannoy.
It's visiting day tomorrow.
Paddington stares at a photograph of himself with the Browns on his bedside table.
Visiting day? I do hope you have good news.
Interior, prison visiting room, day. Paddington sits in a small prison visiting booth. Henry, Mary, Mrs. Bird, and the children are on the other side of the glass, their voices coming through a speaker. Judy lays out the latest copy of her newspaper. It shows various sketches of Phoenix's disguise as a nun, Beefeater, and Henry V.
In the past month, these three shadowy individuals have all been snooping round the London landmarks.
We think the thief you saw is part of a criminal gang.
Using the pop-up book as a treasure map.
Well, it's a theory.
Do you know who they are?
Not yet, dearie. Maybe I should take a look.
Knuckles has appeared in the window next to Paddington.
I'm sorry, this is a private conversation?
It's all right, Mr. Brown. This is my friend, Knuckles.
How are you?
Other heads start appearing from all angles in the window.
And this is Fibs.
Hi.
Spoon.
Oh.
Jimmy the Snitch. T-Bone.
Watcha!
Professor.
Oh,
Swiggy Pete.
Hello.
Double Best Rock Bob.
Hello.
Mama Jack.
I'll do.
Mad Dog.
woof.
Sir Geoffrey Woodcott.
I hope I can rely on your vote.
Johnny Cash Point.
Ka-ching!
And Charlie Rumble.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Charlie growls. Henry is horrified, while Mary charmed.
It's so lovely to meet you all. I must say it's a great relief to know Paddington's already made such sweet friends.
Would you excuse us for a moment?
Henry presses a switch and the light goes out on the brown side of the booth. He turns to Mary.
What are you doing?
Talking to the nice men.
Nice men, Mary. We can't trust these people. I mean, look at them. Talk about rogues gallery. Hideous. That's that bearded baboon in the middle. He hasn't got two brain cells to rub together.
We can still hear you, Mr. Brown.
Henry freezes.
That was the light you turned off. Microphone's on the other side. It has microphone written on
Judy flicks the light back on. Henry swallows nervously.
Gentlemen, if I have offended you in any way...
Don't worry about it. We're fond of the little fella. And let's face it, if anyone can recognize a criminal gang, it's us.
We'd be grateful for any help.
Judy shows them the pictures.
When?
Well, I'm afraid I don't recognize any of them. Lads?
The other prisoners shake their heads and say no.
I'm afraid I couldn't possibly comment.
I'm sorry to say it, kid, but your friends are barking up the wrong tree. A nun, a beefeater, and a king? Sounds more like a fancy dress party than a criminal gang.
Paddington looks around, crestfallen.
Then what are we going to do now?
Exterior, Windsor Square, morning. Mary leaves the house, the first flakes of snow whirling in the air around her. Her head elsewhere, she steps out in front of the cyclist, who nearly hits her and responds angrily.
What were you going?
Mary moves out of the way as the cyclist rides away.
Sorry.
Sorry, I get grumpy when I haven't had breakfast.
Mary walks past Dr. Jafari, who leaves his house and freezes. Keys, 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 keys. He races back to the door, but without Paddington to remind him, he doesn't make it in time. Bottoms! Mary passes Mr. Curry, who is berating the bin man sitting on the back of a parked lorry, reading his A to Z atlas. You can't park here.
I'm not parked. I'm doing the bins.
You're not doing the bins. You're studying. On council time. I'm going to report you and your hat. Mary arrives at the kiosk. The colonel is also there.
Morning, Miss Kitts. Colonel?
Morning, Mr. Brown.
Mary hands Miss Kitts a bundle of newspapers.
Judy asked me to drop these off.
Propaganda!
Here comes trouble.
Mr. Curry has spotted them and walks over. You're wasting your time trying to peddle that rubbish. Everyone knows your bear did it, and this street is far better place without him. Wolfie barks, perhaps protesting Paddington's innocence. Oi! It's that mangy dog. You're going to the pound, my son, barking without a license in a built-up area. I'll ticket you. Miss Kitts takes the papers from Mary.
Give 'em here, Mary. I have to sell 'em under the counter for obvious reasons, but people are buying them.
Really?
The colonel pulls a copy from his inside pocket.
It's a bloomin' good read. Made a few people around here think twice about your young bear.
You just need to find that thief.
We're trying.
Miss Kitts' parrot squawks.
I don't suppose you know where he is, do you, Feathers? I'm sorry.
Mary!
Mary turns to see Phoenix has appeared on his balcony behind her. He beckons her into the house.
Oh, hello, Phoenix.
Come on in. I want you to tell me all about the investigation.
Interior Phoenix's living room. Day. Mary is sitting in Phoenix's living room. It is lavishly decorated with throws, rugs, and paintings on the walls. Among them is an enormous portrait of Phoenix standing on a rock in the Highlands, dressed in a kilt.
Mysterious things all over town have been happening.
Oh, yes.
Strange people turning up at every landmark in that book.
Have they?
I don't know. Perhaps it's all a coincidence. Henry says I let my imagination get the better of me.
Well, you're an artist, Mary, like me. Our imaginations run free, like bison on the plain. But I do fear on this particular occasion dear old Henry might be right.
Really?
But I do have some news that might turn your little frown upside down. It looks as though funding may be coming through for my one-man show.
Oh, right.
An evening of monologue and song featuring some of my better-known characters. How about a little preview? Picture the scene. Darkness. Then spotlight. Me. Bing!
He starts to sing and dance. Mary stares, astonished.
Listen to the rain on the roof go pitch, pitch, pat.
Even Phoenix can't fail to notice Mary isn't happy.
Mary, what's wrong? Don't you like musicals?
No, it's just, it seems so strange that Paddington's in prison and yet life just carries on.
Oh, I know. It must be hard to accept he won, the man with the dazzling blue eyes.
Mary turns to him, stunned.
What did you say?
The man on the poster. Your wonderful drawing.
But how did you know he had blue eyes? It's a pencil sketch.
Phoenix tries to backpedal.
Oh, well, I must have colored him in.
As Mary stares at Phoenix, her many identikit-style drawings flicker over his face, and the penny finally drops. Interior Brown's kitchen. Day. Mary has just outlined her theory to the family, but Henry is still not convinced.
Phoenix Buchanan.
He's a master of disguise.
He's gone mad.
Think about it, Henry. Somewhere out there is the Koslova fortune.
Alleged fortune.
And Knuckles said we weren't looking for a criminal gang.
Knuckles.
Because there was no gang.
It was one man.
And Feathers knew all along.
Feathers? Whose feathers?
Mary realizes she might have said too much.
Nobody?
The parrot at the newsstand? Can we please return to planet Earth for a moment? Look, Phoenix Buchanan is a highly respected, award-winning actor and a member of our Platinum Club. He is not a petty thief.
Before Mary can get a word in edgeways, Henry continues.
But let's just say I'm wrong, shall we? For that fortune teller, career criminal, and parrot are right. May I remind you, you don't actually have any proof. If anyone wants me, I shall be putting up posters.
He leaves, slamming the door behind him.
He's right.
Well, I believe you, Mary. Actors are some of the most evil, devious people on the planet. They lie for a living. If we're going to catch one, we're going to need a foolproof plan. And once I put this pie in the oven, I'll tell you one.
Mary and the children smile. Interior Paddington's jail night. Paddington is lying in bed when he hears a metallic clang followed by a Knuckles voice coming along the pipe.
Paddington! Paddington!
Paddington climbs up the horizontal pipes running through his cell. He opens a vent and can now hear Knuckles clearly.
Knuckles?
Paddington listens as Knuckles' voice floats along the pipe.
Got a proposition for you, kid. Me and the boys have been talking, and it seems to us if you're going to clear your name, you're going to need our help.
The Browns may mean well, but
Takes a thief to catch a thief.
Now, if we could somehow get out of here, hit the streets, we'd find him soon enough.
But would that mean escape?
It certainly would, and we've got a plan. But it's a four-man job, and we need your help. What do you say?
Paddington is sorely tempted, but remembers Aunt Lucy.
That's very kind, Knuckles, but I don't think Aunt Lucy would like the idea of me busting out of the chokey and going on the lam. The Browns will find the real thief. I just need to be patient.
But Knuckles isn't finished.
You may not want to hear this, kid, but sooner or later the Browns will forget you.
Paddington looks horrified at the suggestion, but despite himself, the words begin to seep into his mind like poison.
They always do.
they'll miss one visit, then two.
And before you know it, you won't have a home to go back to.
Paddington shakes his head, refusing to believe.
You're wrong, Knuckles. You're all wrong. The Browns aren't like that. They'll come tomorrow, and they'll have good news. You'll see.
He closes the vent firmly, but Paddington is concerned. Exterior, theatrical agent's office morning. Jonathan and Judy walk up to an office building carrying a basket of pastries. They ring the buzzer.
It's Judy Brown from the Portobello Express.
They're buzzed in. Interior, theatrical agent's office morning. Jonathan and Judy sit in an office, the walls lined with theatrical posters and actors' photographs. Behind the desk is Flick Fanshawe, a glamorous, no-nonsense agent with show business coursing through her veins. The children are recording the conversation on dictaphones?
So, what's this for, darlings? A school newspaper? Oh, shoot. Yes, career profiles. We thought the agent of the Phoenix Buchanan would be really interesting. You'd be right, but I've got 2 minutes and you better make it snappy, and I'm only giving you that because you brought breakfast.
She takes a Chelsea bun.
Nice buns, by the way.
Exterior, Windsor Square, day. The postman is walking back to his van. Mrs. Bird comes over.
Good morning, Marlon.
Morning, Mrs. B. How's Paddington?
Oh, he's a tough wee bear.
As Mrs. Bird keeps him talking, Mary sneaks around the other side of the van carrying a huge Barkridge hamper. She sneaks when the coast is clear, then climbs into the back of the van and gets inside the hamper.
I better get on.
Goodbye.
The postman turns back to the van just as Mary closes the lid from inside. He sees the box and reads the address label.
Mr. Buchanan?
Interior agent's office, day. So when can we expect to see Mr. Buchanan back on stage?
Phoenix, I wouldn't hold your breath, darling. Don't get me wrong, he's a terrific actor, but there's a teeny little problem. He won't work with other people. Think they dilute his talent.
An assistant knocks at the door.
Oh, Muscu, we're having lunch with a big Broadway producer.
She stands to leave.
Where are you going? Where do all big meetings happen? The Ritz, darling.
She takes another bun from the basket.
Really nice buns.
Exterior, Windsor Gardens, day. The postman staggers up to Phoenix's front door with Mary's hamper and rings the bell. From a telephone box across the road, Mrs. Bird watches Phoenix open the door and take the delivery of the parcel. She picks up the phone and dials. Exterior, telephone box outside, agent, day. Jonathan and Judy are in a different telephone box, waiting for a call. Their phone rings and they pick it up.
The package has been delivered.
They hang up and start to dial. Interior, Phoenix's hallway, morning. Phoenix opens up the hamper. It seems to be full of straw. He's about to delve into it when the phone rings. He answers and hears his agent's voice.
Phoenix.
Felicity, was a pleasant surprise. I was beginning to think you'd lost my number.
Interior, phone box outside, agent, morning. Judy and Jonathan are playing extracts from the interview on their dictaphones. Judy presses play.
I've got 2 minutes, so we better make it snappy.
Okay.
Jonathan presses play on the other dictaphone.
We're having lunch with a big Broadway producer.
Interior, Phoenix's living room, morning. Phoenix still believes he's in a real conversation.
Well, that's wonderful. Where should I go?
Where do all the big meetings happen? The Ritz, darling.
I'm on my way.
Nice buns, by the way.
Interior phone box outside agent morning. Judy has left the tape recorder going by mistake and it's played the wrong line. Judy stops it, but they're panicking. Have they been rumbled? Interior Phoenix's living room, morning.
I beg your pardon?
Interior phone box outside agent morning. Jonathan has an idea and presses the button.
Really nice buns.
Interior Phoenix's living room, morning. Phoenix looks bemused, but somewhat pleased with himself.
Well, thank you very much. I've never had any complaints about Mr. and Mrs. Bodycheek.
He hangs up, grabs his coat and leaves. As the door shuts behind him, something shifts in the hamper. Mary emerges from the straw. Interior, Henry and Mary's bathroom, morning. Henry, still in his pajamas, is brushing his teeth when he glances out the window, which looks out along the gardens behind the houses. He sees Mary in Phoenix's living room.
Mary?
Interior, Phoenix's living room, morning. Mary is rifling through Phoenix's paperwork, not sure what she's looking for. When she spots a blank, use notepad. Using the side of a pencil, she uncovers the indentations left from the previous note. Saturday, 6:35, where all your dreams come true. Bang, bang, bang. There's a sharp knock at the window. Mary jumps out of her skin, but it's just Henry. Mary goes and opens the window.
Have you gone insane?
I know it's Phoenix, and I'm going to prove it.
Henry climbs through the window.
This is breaking and entering.
You haven't broken anything.
Henry knocks over a vase. It smashes on the floor.
Why would Phoenix steal a pop-up book? He's a millionaire.
Well, that's where you're wrong. He owes money all over town.
She thrusts some paperwork into Henry's hands.
So he's got a few bills. I mean, everyone... Good grief, man spends a lot on face cream.
He hasn't got a penny to his name. Now come on, let's find that book and get out of here.
Exterior road, day. Phoenix is walking down the street. He realizes he has forgotten his cravat and turns back the way he's come. Interior, Phoenix's landing, day. Henry and Mary stand at the top of the landing. They've searched the whole house with no luck. Mary sighs.
He must be missing something.
Unless there's nothing to find. Can we please go?
They head downstairs, but suddenly something catches Mary's eye. In the landing carpet, there are 2 indentations.
Look, Henry, the carpet.
Yes, it's lovely. I'll order a swatch.
She looks up at the paneled ceiling above her.
Give me a leg up.
Henry reluctantly does so, creaking as he bends over.
What's that noise?
It's me.
Gosh, you really do creak.
Can we just get on with it?
He hoists her up to the ceiling where she presses a ceiling panel and it swings open. A stepladder unfolds, its feet landing in the 2 divots.
A secret room.
It's an attic.
A secret attic.
It's an ordinary attic.
Mary heads up, followed by Henry.
Every house on the street has one. See, just a perfectly normal...
Interior Phoenix's attic room continues. Henry sees Phoenix's mannequins.
Oh my god, he's a weirdo.
Look, Henry the nun. The thief. The king.
We were right.
We?
Well, I never said.
Suddenly, they hear a noise of the front door opening. Interior Phoenix's hallway. Day. Phoenix comes through the front door. Interior Phoenix's attic room. Day. Henry and Mary creep down the ladder and close the hatch behind them. They peer over the banisters and see Phoenix going into the bathroom at the back of the hall. Interior Phoenix's hallway. Day. They get to the bottom of the stairs and run to the front door, but Phoenix turns back to the hall, so they have to bolt into the living room to hide. Phoenix walks through the hall and hears the footsteps. He grabs the walking stick sword from an umbrella stand in the hall and goes into the living room.
Hello, who goes there? Show yourself. I'm armed and schooled.
Everything seems normal, apart from one thing. Henry's legs disappearing behind the sofa.
Henry?
Henry sheepishly gets to his feet. He can't help noticing Phoenix is brandishing a sword.
Hello, Phoenix.
What on earth are you doing here?
I'll ask you the same thing.
I live here. It's my house.
And I insure it. And for our Platinum Club members, we perform an annual full home inspection to verify your security arrangements.
In your pajamas.
Mm-hmm.
With your wife.
Phoenix pulls back a curtain to reveal Mary, who taps the window pretending she was inspecting it.
Oh, seems pretty secure. Oh, hello, Phoenix. Didn't hear you come in.
Helps out when we're busy.
Well, I must say that sounds plausible.
Does it? Great. Well, I'm delighted to say everything seems tickety-boo.
Wonderful.
Better get cracking.
Phoenix ushers them towards the door.
I'll get the boys in the office to type this up ASAP, and I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Though next time, perhaps not in your pajamas, eh?
They all laugh far too much. Phoenix shuts the door and his smile drops as he darts upstairs. Interior Phoenix's attic room continuous. Phoenix bursts in. The pop-up book is still there, locked in his makeup table. He breathes a huge sigh of relief.
Oh, thank Larry, it's still there. Thank Larry, Johnny, and all the ghosts of the avenue. It was close. Aye, too close if you ask me.
Phoenix opens the book.
Hold your nerve, Macbeth. Screw your courage to the sticking post. We are so nearly there. I have followed this little lady all the way across London and found every one of her clever little clues. Aye, but what do they mean? It's just a jumble of letters. Au contraire, mon ami, they are not letters at all. They are musical notes. Indeed, Poirot, and I believe I know just where to play them.
He looks at the back cover of the book, which features a picture of the fairground organ and the words, "Where all your dreams come true." Exterior police station, day. From outside, we can hear the Browns all talking at once. Interior police station, day. The Browns and Mrs. Bird are lined up at the counter, making their case to the policewoman who arrested Paddington.
Hold it. That is an amazing story, but all you proved is that Phineas Buchanan keeps his old costumes. Bring me some hard evidence. Bring me the book with his fingerprints on it, and you got a case. But until then, there's nothing I can do. I'm sorry.
She walks away. The Browns are distraught. What are we going to do now?
I don't know.
At least we can tell Paddington we know who did it.
And just then, the clock starts to strike. They look up.
Oh, no.
What is it?
We've missed visiting.
Interior prison visiting room, day. Paddington sits in a visiting booth, holding his paws. He anxiously cranes his neck to look for the Browns. But a klaxon sounds, marking the end of visiting, and nobody has come for him. All the lights go out. Paddington is left in the dark. I'm not crying. Interior Paddington's cell, night. Paddington lies on his bed, gazing at the photograph of him with the Browns. As he does so, his face disappears from the pictures, and now it's just the Browns smiling out at him without their bear. A single tear rolls down his nose and splashes onto the floor. But then, where the tear has fallen between two stone slabs, a tiny green shoot appears from the leaf, and a leaf unfurls. As Paddington watches, more and more shoots appear, growing upwards through the cracks in the floor. Creepers wrap themselves around the iron bars of the cell door, which thickened and become trees. Paddington stands up, and around him, instead of the cell, is the majesty of the Peruvian rainforest, and he hears a familiar sound.
Paddington.
He looks up, and suddenly Aunt Lucy is there before him.
Aunt Lucy!
He races through the jungle and flies into her arms.
What are you doing here? I thought you'd be at home.
I'm afraid I haven't got one anymore. You see, I'm in prison, and even the Browns have forgotten me.
The jungle behind him disappears, and he is back in prison, and he hears the now familiar knock at the pipes.
Paddington!
Paddington goes and opens the vent on the pipe.
Knuckles?
Tonight's the night, kid. We leave at midnight. You want to clear your name? It's now or never. You in?
Paddington swallows and then replies reluctantly.
I'm in.
Interior warden's office, night. The clock strikes 12. The warden stands up to leave.
Right, time to call it a night. Nothing much going on around here anyway. They've been as good as gold recently.
He switches out the light in the room, but the camera pushes into the warden's model of the main prison building, and the front swings open like a doll's house, showing a cross-section of the prison. The prisoners are all in their cells while guards patrol the staircases and corridors. The searchlight sweeps across the entire prison complex from a watchtower above a clock on top of the central hall. In 4 cells on the top floor, Knuckles, Fib, Spoon, and Paddington get out of bed and drop through the floorboards. Interior crawl space beneath the floor, night. The cameraman drops through the floor with them, tracks along with the prisoners as they crawl to the end of the building. Knuckles unscrews a panel and drops down the laundry chute. Interior prison laundry, night. The prisoners drop one by one into a pile of laundry and run out the door. Interior basement storage room, night. The prisoners run into a long room supported by pillars. Running along the entire length of one wall are pigeonholes containing parcels of the prisoners' clothes. They each grab a parcel of clothes, then Paddington is led by Knuckles to a hatch which leads into the clock mechanism. Interior clock pendulum, night. Paddington shimmies up the pendulum and at the top squeezes into the clockwork mechanism. Like Charlie Chaplin in modern times, he rides the cogs up until he is deposited on the floor of the warden's office. Interior warden's office. Paddington grabs a key and heads out of the office. Interior canteen, night. The prisoners use the key Paddington took to let themselves into the canteen. They run through, grabbing a pile of tablecloths along the way. Interior prison kitchen, night. They shimmy up the skylight above the kitchen, carrying the tablecloths, laundry basket, and now a propane tank. Exterior prison roof, night. The prisoners wait for the searchlight to sweep past the kitchen, then climb out of the skylight and run along the roof to the shadows at the base of the watchtower. Exterior prison watchtower, night. The light sweeps over them once more, and the prisoners climb to the roof above the watchtower guard. They open a basket and pull out an enormous sheet of tablecloths that have been stitched together. Interior laundry basket, night. Fibs opens the valve of the propane tank. Spoons ignites the flame. Interior cell, night. T-Bone looks out the window and double takes. Rising from the roof of the watchtower is a hot air balloon. The canopy is made of tablecloths. The basket is a laundry basket, and it's fueled by propane. And riding in it are Knuckles, Fibs, Spoon, and Paddington.
Good luck, little bear!
Exterior prison exercise yard, night. The balloon floats over the prison wall. Exterior balloon basket, night. 3 prisoners hurl their prison hats and jackets into the sky, whooping with delight at their escape. But Paddington looks at the city he loves, worried about the choice he's made, scared of being a fugitive. Exterior London Docklands, night. Knuckles and the others are wearing the civilian clothes they took with them. Paddington is back on his hat and coat.
Bring her down, Spoon.
Exterior derelict factory, night. The balloon comes to Earth by a derelict factory on the river in the east end of London. The prisoners tumble out of the basket and run through the factory to the wharf as a balloon deflates behind them. Exterior derelict factory, wharf, night. The prisoners run up to the wharf where a seaplane waits.
There she is, boys. Our ticket out of here.
Paddington is startled by the statement.
What do you mean? Where are you going?
The prisoners look guiltily to one another.
May as well tell him, Knuckles.
Tell me what? Aren't we going to clear my name?
Sorry, kid. Change your plan.
Paddington can scarcely believe what he's hearing.
We're leaving the country.
And you're coming with us.
But you said you lied to me.
Knuckles feels ashamed of the deception, but genuinely believes he's done the right thing.
Hey, now it's not like that. We were doing you a favor. If we told you the truth, you'd never have come along. And it's better this way. We'll make marmalade together.
But I don't want to, Knuckles. I want to go clear my name and go home. And you said you'd help. You promised.
Sorry, kid. No can do.
Hearing this, Paddington just turns and runs.
Paddington!
Let him go. If he wants to get himself arrested, it's his choice.
Exterior, street, alley, night. Paddington walks down a main road, all alone in the world. Behind him, a police car turns on its siren and drives towards him. Paddington ducks into an alley, screwing his eyes shut and waiting for the inevitable. But the police car passes by. Paddington heaves a sigh of relief and looks up to see a telephone box in the alley. The idea occurs to him. He finds a single coin in his pocket, the one Mrs. Bird found in his ear at breakfast. He goes into the phone box, picks up the receiver, and dials. Hello? Paddington is delighted to hear his friend's voice.
Hello, Jonathan. It's Pad.
You reached the Brown residence.
Paddington's heart sinks as he realizes it's not gone through to the Browns, merely their answer phone. We're not in, but leave a message. The answer phone beeps.
Beep. Hello, it's me, Paddington.
Interior Brown's hallway, night. Paddington's voice echoes in an empty hallway.
I hope you don't mind my calling. I just wanted to let you know I've broken out of prison and, well, I suppose I'm on the run. I didn't really mean to, but Knuckles said if we broke out, he'd kill my name and then I could come home.
Interior phone box, night.
But he's gone now and I'm on my own.
The pips go.
I don't really know why I'm calling. I suppose I just wanted to say.
The line goes dead.
Goodbye.
Yeah, he hangs up, his heart ready to burst. He picks up his case and walks away from the phone box. But then, behind him, the telephone rings. Scarcely daring to believe, he turns and races to the phone.
Hello?
Paddington?
Relief floods through Paddington.
Yes, it's Paddington.
Interior Brown's house, phone box, night. Mary beckons Henry, who's just coming in from postering, to join her and the rest of the family at the phone.
I'm so sorry I escaped, Mrs. Brown, but I thought you'd forgotten me.
We'd never forget you, Paddington.
Paddington?
Your family.
And we know who the thief was.
Phoenix Buchanan.
Mr. Buchanan?
But he's disappeared into thin air.
Mary looks at a piece of paper she took from his house.
We've been looking for him at every landmark in that book, every last page.
Will all your dreams come true?
Why do you say that?
It was written on the last page of the pop-up book. Always made me think of Aunt Lucy.
That's funny. I found the exact same phrase on a piece of paper at Phoenix's house.
I'm sure I've seen that before.
Judy looks at the cover of an old copy of her newspaper. It has a picture of Phoenix and Paddington opening the fair. On the organ behind them is the fairground organ, and on that, the words, "Where all your dreams come true."
The organ?
That must be where Madame Koslova hid her fortune.
Then let's go to the fair.
Too late. They're leaving today. From Paddington Station.
At 6:35.
There's still time.
Paddington, get to the station. If we can find Phoenix and get a hold of that book, his fingerprints will prove everything.
Interior phone box, night.
But that's miles away, Mr. Brown. I'll never...
Paddington hears the distinctive horn of the bin lorry and looks down the alleyway to see Mr. Barnes, the binman.
I'll see you there.
Exterior, London streets, night. Paddington rides the dustbin lorry as he drives through town. Cars screech to a halt around them.
Clear the road, it's a refuse emergency.
Exterior, Windsor Gardens, night. Mr. Curry is standing on the newspaper kiosk, his dressing gown with a loud hailer. A homemade neighborhood panic board sits on the road next to him. Fellow citizens, this is your Community Defense Force commander. The neighbors come out of their windows, woken by the sound. I've just received intelligence the bear has escaped from prison and may be heading this way. I am raising the neighborhood panic level to wild hysteria. He shifts the arrow on his board from extremely jittery to wild hysteria. The Browns run out of their house towards their car.
Get out of the way, Mr. Curry.
Paddington's not heading this way.
He's going to clear his name.
And we're going to bring him home.
We don't want him here. Henry stops and approaches him, and as he speaks, the neighbors begin to understand the truth of his words.
Of course you don't. You never have. You took one look at that bear and you made up your mind. Paddington's not like that. He looks for the good in all of us and somehow he finds it. He wouldn't hesitate if any of us needed help. So stand aside, Mr. Curry, because we're going through.
Henry tries to start his car, but it stalls. Oh, very good. Your plan seems to have stalled, like your vehicle. But suddenly the car begins to move. Henry looks around, amazed to see his neighbors have gathered around their cars and are pushing it. Second gear, clutch down, Mr. Brown.
After 3, 3.
What's going on? What are you doing? Do not push that vehicle. Bring Paddington home. The car roars into life and heads towards the newspaper kiosk. Mr. Curry jumps out of the way as the car runs over the panic board. The neighbors all cheer in relief. Exterior, Paddington Station, entrance ramp, night. The dustbin lorry pulls up to the station. The bin man jumps down, takes the plastic sleeve off the litter bin by the entrance, and puts it over Paddington.
Now, Paddington, keep your head down and remember, your bin.
Interior, Paddington Station, concourse, night. The bin walks across the concourse, muttering to itself.
You're a bin. You're a bin. Just not a bin. Going for a walk.
He suddenly freezes and sees a dozy policeman approaching, eating a donut. He ducks as the policeman puts half the donut into the bin.
Thank you.
The policeman freezes. That was weird.
Nothing to see here, officer. Just a bin.
The policeman shrugs and goes on his way. Paddington pops up, eating the donut.
It's quite good being a bin.
Exterior road bridge near Paddington Station, night. The Browns' car races over a bridge near Paddington. Beyond the station are the first gleams of the winter dawn. Interior, Paddington Station, platform 1, night. Paddington waits in the bin by the fare train, watching a train porter approach. It's Phoenix in disguise. Exterior, Paddington Station, entrance, night. The Browns pull up at a station and leap out of the car. Interior, Paddington Station, platform 1, night. A whistle is blown and the train starts to move. Phoenix hops onto the platform at the back of the fairground organ truck in the middle of the train. Paddington casts off the bin and leaps into the platform at the front of the rear truck as the train picks up speed. The Browns run onto the platform as the train pulls away.
Paddington!
They run faster, drawing near the moving train. Paddington leans out from the rear truck and calls to them.
Mr. Brown!
Henry reaches out, almost touching the last truck, but the train pulls away from them and it's gone.
Don't worry, I handled it myself.
The Browns stand at the end of the platform, bereft.
We've got to catch up with that train.
How?
On the platform behind them, another steam train whistles. Jonathan turns to see the Bellman British Pullman idling along the next platform. I've got an idea. Interior Pullman carriage, night. The judge and his wife are sitting in a smart carriage. A steward comes and offers them champagne.
Good morning, madam. Sir, may I offer you a glass of champagne?
Oh, how lovely. Thank you very much.
Very civilized. Nice to have a break after all I've been through with that ghastly bear.
Don't you think you were a little harsh on him, darling?
Harsh, Gertrude. Nonsense. In life, people get what they deserve.
Interior Pullman cab, night. Jonathan is starting the train. The rest of the family look on, amazed by his expertise. Boiler pressure, 225. Water, half a glass. Air brake, off.
Nice work, J-Dog.
My name's not J-Dog. It's Jonathan Brown, and I like steam trains. He pulls a lever and the train lurches forward. Interior Pullman carriage, night. The sudden lurch makes the steward slosh champagne all over the judge, who is immediately irate.
I'm so sorry, sir. Get off, get
Get
off.
off me! Get off!
The judge's wife starts shushing him.
Don't shush me, Gertrude. I have just been spilled upon by chilled liquid.
Gerald, I want you to shush.
The judge is silenced.
Yes, Gertrude.
Interior seaplane, dawn. Spoon pilots the plane high over the English countryside while Knuckles tunes a portable radio.
4 convicts made a daring escape from Portobello prison last night. The prisoners all appear to have vanished without a trace.
All 3 prisoners are delighted. They've got clean away.
Except for Paddington Brown, who has been seen boarding a train bound for Bristol. Police are closing in and expect to make the arrest soon.
The prisoners are visibly deflated by the news. Phibbs looks out the window at the railway line far below.
Poor little guy. He must be somewhere down there right now. Probably scared half to death.
Shouldn't we help him, Knuckles?
If we go down there now, they won't just lock us up, they'll throw away the key.
I know, but he's our friend.
We stick to the plan. I don't do nothing for no one for nothing.
But as he looks out the window, his eyes fill with tears. Exterior countryside, day. The fair train races away from London and into rural England. The camera pushes in towards the front truck, which contains the fairground organ. Interior fair train, organ truck, day. Phoenix walks into the organ truck, taking off the wig he wore to disguise himself as a porter. He pulls a tarpaulin off the fairground organ. He looks at one of the mannequin figures on the organ, the magician.
Well, grandfather, the moment of truth.
He takes the pop-up book from his bag and turns to the first page, Tower Bridge.
D.
He presses the corresponding note on the organ keyboard. A light appears.
It's working.
He starts putting in the other notes, but at the far end of the carriage, Paddington is watching through the window. He spots the book, a hatch in the roof above it, and remembers Henry's words.
If we can find that book, his fingerprints will prove everything.
Paddington looks around and spots a barrel of toffee apples. A plan begins to formulate in his head. Interior Pullman cab, day. Judy is leaning out of the cab, looking through her camera's telephoto lens. She can see Paddington climbing towards the roof with a couple of toffee apples.
What's he doing?
I don't know.
Paddington!
He can't hear us.
Henry swings inside.
Can this thing go any faster?
I can try, but we need more coal.
I'm on it.
Try to put alongside. I'm going across.
I'll come with you.
Judy?
Just you try and stop us.
Oh, come on, then.
He swings out of the cab. Exterior, fair train, organ truck, day. Paddington climbs up onto the roof. Using the toffee apples like suckers, he makes his way along the windy roof of the skylight above Phoenix's head. Suddenly, he spots a tunnel approaching and has a limbo backwards to avoid being squashed. He emerges from the tunnel, covered in soot, and continues toward Phoenix. Exterior, between the trains, day. Henry, Judy, and Mrs. Bird climb out onto the roof in front of the engine. Henry helps Mrs. Bird and Judy onto the fair train. Lastly, he reaches out with one leg and gets 1 foot on the platform and at the back of the fair train. Suddenly the tracks part and Henry finds his legs being pulled wide apart between the 2 trains.
Open your mind and your legs will follow.
Henry goes into a zen state and manages to do the splits. But then suddenly he spots a telegraph pole rushing towards him and he screams for help. Luckily, Mrs. Bird hears him, runs back into the platform, and pulls him to safety.
Thank heavens for acrobatics.
Interior fare train, organ truck, day. Phoenix is putting in the last of the code. Above him, Paddington opens the hatch and looks down.
F and E.
Suddenly, the whole fairground organ lights up. Phoenix steps forward, hypnotized by the splendor of what he's seeing. Behind him, Paddington swings through the skylight, using the toffee apples like suckers to hang from the roof. While the whirring of cogs, the organ begins to open, the pipes sink down, and the mannequin of Madame Koslova rises to the body of the machine, exposing a complex clockwork mechanism. Behind Phoenix, Paddington creeps along towards the book, the sound of the toffee apples masked by the sound of the organ. Meanwhile, a treasure box rises out of the organ mechanism. Phoenix stares, entranced as the box opens, revealing its treasure, piles of gold jewelry, trinkets, and diamonds.
Hello.
Behind him, Paddington managed to grab the book and starts inching his way back towards the skylight.
Aren't you pretty? West End, here I come.
Suddenly, the organ stops playing, and now Phoenix can hear the sound of the toffee apples on the roof behind him. He turns around to see Paddington, upside down, nose to nose with him.
No.
Morning, Mr. Buchanan.
Phoenix steps back, astounded, and accidentally kicks the organ keyboard. The treasure box slams shut and the pipes descend, hiding the treasure.
No.
Phoenix tries to put the code back in as Paddington scrambles onto the roof with the book.
D. G. No. D. E.
Finding he can't remember the code, he runs after Paddington.
Come back with that book.
Interior fare train, Charoplane's truck. Henry, Mrs. Bird, and Judy run through the Charoplanes. Exterior fare train roof, day. Phoenix climbs onto the roof and chases the bear.
Where do you think you're going, Bear? It's a train. It comes to an end, like all of us, alas.
Paddington looks round to see that he has, indeed, reached the back of the train. He skids to a halt, only just avoiding falling off the train.
Whoops.
Paddington turns to see Phoenix striding toward him.
Exit Bear, pursued by an actor.
But suddenly he falls through a skylight into a truck below. Interior fare train, sideshow truck, day. Phoenix sits up to see Henry, Judy, and Mrs. Bird.
Phoenix Buchanan.
Mrs. Bird?
So now you remember.
And she's brought the cavalry. A little girl and an insurance man. What am I going to do?
Tell you exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to blooming well biff you in the nose.
Phoenix grabs a sword swallower sword from the wall and brandishes it professionally.
Not a very good idea. Stage combat, level 4.
Mrs. Bird grabs a gun from the rack at his end of the carriage.
Where I come from, laddie, they teach you never to bring a knife to a gunfight.
I think you'll find that fires plastic darts.
Mrs. Bird fires a gun and a dart sticks into Phoenix's forehead. He pulls it off with a pop.
So it does.
Whereas this sword is razor sharp.
He slices his sword through some stuffed animals. The Browns jump, terrified. He starts walking them back to the next carriage, grabbing some handcuffs along the way.
Back you go.
Exterior into fare train, rear truck, day. The two train lines are coming together again. Paddington climbs down from the roof to the platform at the back of the rear truck where he first climbed on. Interior Pullman carriage, day. The steward is serving the judge an enormous pudding.
And for you, sir, the jumbo pavlova.
At that moment, he looks out to see Paddington on the train waving towards him.
Afternoon, Your Honor. The hair's looking lovely.
It's all just too much for the judge, who passes out his pudding. Exterior, fare train, rear truck, day. Paddington is suddenly amazed to spot Mrs. Brown in the driver's cab at the other end of the train.
Mrs. Brown!
Paddington, slow down, Jonathan.
Jonathan puts on the brakes, bringing the Pullman cab into line with Paddington, but the trains are still a good 30 feet apart, with no obvious way to get across. Paddington sees his suitcase and has an idea. Interior fare train, Galloper's truck, day. Henry, Mary, and Mrs. Bird have been handcuffed to some poles. Phoenix checks they're securely fastened.
Good, excellent. Now for your furry friend.
Exterior fare train, rear truck, day. Paddington opens his suitcase and pulls out his telescopic ladder. He wedges the top end of the ladder into the gap and floorboards of the platform at the back of the train. Paddington climbs to the bottom end of the ladder and starts winding it out towards the Pullman, hoping to create a bridge between the two trains. Suddenly, Phoenix appears at the door and spots Paddington.
Hooey!
He tries to go through the door, but it's locked. He throws a shoulder against it. Interior fare train, Galloper's Truck Day.
What are we going to do?
Mrs. Bird pulls a pin out of her hair.
Don't worry. I know a little trick Harry Houdini used to do.
She starts working out the lock of her handcuffs with the pin. Exterior, between the trains, day. Phoenix is still bashing against the door. The wood starts to splinter. Meanwhile, Paddington has made his way to the far end of the ladder, but still can't quite reach Mary. And just then, Phoenix breaks through the door. He hits the retract button on the extendable ladder. Paddington is pulled back into his arms. Phoenix grabs the book, hurls Paddington into the rear truck, and bolts the door, trapping him inside the last truck. Exterior, fare train, day. Phoenix pulls the pin between the two trucks, separating Paddington from the rest of the train.
Bye-bye, Bear.
He leans out and uses the pin to knock the trackside lever. The points shift, sending Paddington's truck hurtling onto a different track. Phoenix turns back inside, but stops in his tracks, standing in the middle of the 4 coconuts on stance. We crash zoom to see that the Browns have escaped from their handcuffs and stand at the far end of the next truck. Judy takes a photograph while Henry picks up a coconut shy ball and throws it. It travels through clean the 2 trucks and connects with Phoenix's forehead, knocking him out cold.
Bullseye!
Exterior railway, day. Paddington's truck has left the main railway line and is now hurtling through the siding. He is thrown around as it crashes through the buffers at the end of the siding. It hurtles down a slope, crashing through foliage, over a cliff, and into the murky waters of the river below. Interior Pullman's driver's cab, day. Mary has seen the disaster from her cab.
Stop the train, Jonathan.
Jonathan pulls the brake lever. Exterior viaduct, day. The Pullman shrieks to a halt on the viaduct. Interior runway fare truck, day. Paddington's truck is sinking into the river. He tries to open the door, but it won't give. Exterior viaduct, day. Mary jumps off the train.
Jonathan, go get help.
Interior runway fare truck, day. Paddington heaves, but the door still won't give, and the carriage is filling with water. Exterior viaduct, day. Mary runs to the side of the bridge. Exterior underwater, day. The runway truck lands at the bottom of the river. Exterior viaduct, day. Mary pulls off her coat and dives into the water. Exterior underwater, day. Mary cuts through the water, swimming down towards the truck. Interior one-way fare truck, day. A few inches of air have been trapped towards the top of the truck, but they're disappearing fast. Paddington hears a metallic noise from the other side of the door as Mary works the lock from the outside. He takes a final breath and sinks into the water. Exterior underwater, day. Mary has unbolted the door. She heaves it open inch by inch. She can see Paddington's face through the crack in the door, but then the door stops moving. Mary looks frantically around for the problem. She sees that the door has been chained shut. Mary and Paddington tug at the chain together with all their might, but it's no good. The chain is just too strong. Paddington reaches through the gap in the doorway and takes Mary's hand with his paw. They gaze at each other, knowing the end is upon. Again, I'm not crying. But suddenly, a shadow crosses his eyes. He looks up to see the silhouette of the seaplane landing on the water above them. We can hear distant voices. There are 3 splashes as people dive in. And then, someone else is at the door. It's Knuckles. Fibs and Spoon follow in his wake. Together, they all pull at the doors, and slowly, inexorably, the chain breaks. Mary grabs Paddington and pulls him towards the surface. Exterior riverbank, day. Mary, Knuckles, and Paddington surface, gasping for breath.
Knuckles, you came back.
Can't make marmalade on my own now, can I?
Paddington smiles and then passes out.
Paddington, he's burning up.
Best get the little fellow to bed.
They climb out of the water as Henry, Jonathan, Judy, and Mrs. Bird appear on the bank.
Mary!
Mom.
Paddington!
He's not well.
He'll be fine. Won't you, little buddy?
Exterior Windsor Gardens 3 days later. Snow falls on the street. The camera cranes up towards Paddington's attic window and through into his room. Interior Paddock's attic room, day. Paddington lies asleep in bed, surrounded by the family. Mrs. Bird is taking his temperature. As she removes the thermometer from his mouth, his eyelids flutter and he wakes up. Paddington!
Where am I?
Take it easy now.
You gave us a wee scare, but you're home now.
Paddington's face lights up.
Home?
That's right. Look.
Judy hands him a newspaper. Exclusive! Paddington freed. Dog food actor arrested. The police realize they made a terrible mistake.
Phoenix Buchanan has been arrested and, I might add, is no longer a member of our Platinum Club.
You're a free bear.
How long have I been asleep?
3 days.
3 days. But that means...
It's Aunt Lucy's birthday.
A little spark goes out in Paddington's eyes.
Oh. And they never sent anything.
It's all right, Paddington.
But it isn't all right, Mrs. Brown. Aunt Lucy did so much for me when I was a cub, and all I ever really wanted to do was to make her proud. But she's going to wake up on her birthday with no present, and I think I've let her down completely.
Oh, you great goose. She won't think that at all.
Won't she?
Come with us.
He takes Paddington by the paw and leads him downstairs. Interior, the brown staircase continuous. Paddington looks over the banisters to see the hallway is full of people. It seems like the whole neighborhood has come to wish him well.
He's here!
The neighbors erupt into cheers and applause.
What are you all doing here?
We wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. For everything you've done for us. Me?
The crowd agrees.
If it wasn't for you, we'd never have met.
You helped me pass my exams.
And I would be permanently locked out of my house. The crowd laughs, but all Paddington can think of is how amazed he is and that he means so much to them.
I'd say you've rather a lot to be proud of. When we've heard the police needed a book as evidence, we thought we'd get Aunt Lucy another present.
We all club together.
I pulled in a few favors for my old Air Force buddies.
We think she's going to love it.
Paddington looks baffled.
But what is it?
You wanted to get that book so Aunt Lucy could see London, didn't you?
It was always her dream.
Well, we thought, why look at London in a book when she could see the real thing?
Just then, the doorbell rings. Paddington looks up at Mary, not daring to believe.
Why don't you go and answer it?
Paddington goes to the front door and opens it, and there, standing in the snow, is Aunt Lucy. The young bear's face lights up in perfect joy. He flies into her arms and nuzzles against her.
Oh, Paddington.
Happy birthday, Aunt Lucy.
In Paddington's eyes, we see his happiness is complete. The end. Credits. As the credits roll, Paddington's scrapbook appears on the screen. As the pages turn, we discover what happened next. Paddington and Aunt Lucy toured London, their journey commemorated with snapshots and ticket stubs. Mammal Mia, barefoot in the park, and The Winter's Tale. Knuckles, Fibs, and Spoon are paroled. The Portobello Express notes that the judge described them as changemen that plan to open a cafe called Knuckles Sandwiches. Brilliant. Mary swam the channel, but she forgot her passport and had to swim back. Jonathan gave up the name J-Dog and started the STEAM team, which proved surprisingly popular among his classmates. Henry finally got his promotion, having proved that he was not too old for anything. A final newspaper headline in the scrapbook announces Phoenix Buchanan sentenced today. Under the headline is a picture of the judge, which comes to life.
Phoenix Buchanan, you have proved yourself a heinous criminal
Phoenix whimpers.
and a disgrace to the noble profession of acting.
Phoenix howls with self-pity.
I hereby sentence you to 10 years in prison and suggest you use your time behind bars wisely.
As Phoenix listens to these words, a change comes over him.
I shall, Your Honor, I shall.
Exterior prison, day. A caption reads, 6 months later. Interior prison atrium day. Phoenix is in prison, performing an extravagant musical version of Rain on the Roof. But instead of performing on his own, he is now part of a company with his other inmates. They finish the routine, and the prison crowd goes wild.
Thank you, my darlings. Thank you. It seems I didn't need the West End at all. Just a captive audience.
The crowd laughs at this terrible joke.
Honestly, what am I like? Guards, lock me up. Oh, wait, you have.
Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, masterpiece. That was QTC's reading of Paddington 2. Everyone here is absolutely amazing, and we all thank you for watching.
Thank you very much.